It is Tuesday, and thank you for joining us here this afternoon on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Across from me is the fabulous, great producer, Carlene Bragg.
Hi, everyone. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. How are you doing?
It's one day closer.
One day? Can I say it now?
You can say it.
Okay. Just that much closer to Friday.
That much closer.
You are a lot closer to Friday.
Yeah.
You're
I'm a little bit closer to my weekend. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Carlene is
Not to brag, but you know.
When this is your what? No,
This is my
Thursday.
Thursday.
It's your Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
It was a short week.
Short week.
Yeah, you deserve the time off,
Thank
Carlene.
you.
You work hard here.
Thank you.
You doing okay today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Can't complain. It's a beautiful day outside.
It is gorgeous.
I made an effort to go outside before the show. I disappeared for a little bit. I just went outside. And I'm like, man, it feels pretty good outside.
Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah, because it made my job hard to come in here and say, man, it looks great outside, and I haven't been outside.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that have to go outside in order to give
feel
a
it for
good
yourself.
analysis of how I'm going to toss when I have somebody like Becca Bursall
That's right.
in the studio. It feels great.
Feels
I like
great.
it. It feels fantastic outside. It's a great, I was thinking about this. It's a great pool day.
Yes.
Like where it's not too hot, you're not going to fry outside, but it's just
It's
comfortable.
the humidity levels that just make it feel so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
So if you have any outdoor plans today would be the day to do so, as we're probably going to see that humidity value start to increase by the end of the week.
Enjoy it now because later in the week,
It's going to get
or
hot.
later in the summer too. I'm like, enjoy this. I feel like even later in the week is going to be nothing compared to like late July, August.
We're going to be in the upper
obviously.
80s, maybe brushing 90 towards Saturday, of course, with pop-up summertime thunderstorms. But this is only the beginning. So days like this, where we're still in the lower to middle 80s, lower humidity, those are the days that you really have to take advantage of. Of course, we're in June, and hurricane season is in full swing. We've got our first area of potential interest from the National Hurricane Center, and they came out with this outlook yesterday. A 10% chance now of tropical cyclone formation over the next 48 hours to 7 days. Now, this is likely not going to turn into a named tropical storm, but it will likely carry on some sort of tropical or subtropical characteristics, especially towards the end of the work week as it moves off the Florida coast. And if it remains enough offshore, it could be able to gain a little bit of strength. Now, what is the difference between tropical versus subtropical? Well, subtropical is typically where the strongest winds are away from the center. It's a hybrid system that usually contains both extratropical and tropical characteristics. It's also a little bit more of a cold core, while tropical, strongest winds are near the center, and it's fueled by just the warm waters. So dust is also going to have an impact on our forecast as well. Of course, we've been dealing with the Canadian smoke since this weekend, and that's going to linger today and tomorrow. You'll notice the hazy skies, but we'll have a plume of dust start to move into the Atlantic and even over towards the Carolinas, I think, just in time for Thursday. So once again, we're going to be dealing with the haze, replacing smoke with dust. We just cannot get away from it. Thankfully, does not look like it's going to be impacting air quality much, and it will help to suppress some of that tropical activity as well. And we'll likely carry that all the way through the end of the work week before cold front really starts to drag this off to the sea. So Saharan dust, what it actually does with tropical weather, well, it certainly gets picked up from Africa and starts to move way across the Atlantic. So this has traveled thousands of miles to the Carolinas again by around Thursday, and it suppresses convection. So it's basically hard for clouds to form when you have dust in the air, and of course suppressing tropical cyclone activity. So this will help prohibit that from actually happening. Regardless if this turns into any named storm, which it's not expected to do so, still will bring lots of disorganized and showers and thunderstorms and pretty significant rainfall from Florida to the Carolinas. So you'll notice a low excessive rainfall impact from Florida all the way to the Carolina coastline between Wednesday and Thursday. And those are the areas that are going to see the most significant rainfall out of this. Most of the rainfall totals, especially over towards towards Florida. This graphic is still made. Okay, there we go. Could see anywhere from 2 to upwards of 4 inches at times. And alongside that Carolina coast, you can see some of those darker oranges and reds. That is indicating some areas will see close to around 3 inches of rainfall between now and the next 7 days. I want to mention this is not going to be a significant rainfall for the Charlotte area. We may pick up half an inch to upwards of an inch in some spots, but it is not looking to be like a big soaker for our area. Much bigger rainfall impacts again over towards the coastline. So service map showing that low pressure system continues to drift up to the north. And again, if it does remain just a little bit more offshore, that's the chance where it could gain just a little bit of strength there. But otherwise, it's going to bring some rain for our area starting Thursday morning. So futurecast showing nothing but dry conditions today and tomorrow, but here comes the showers to start off your Thursday. Some pockets of heavy rainfall possible, but depending on where this low pressure system actually sets up, some of this rainfall could shift east or west, so keep that in mind. By the time we get during the daytime hours on Thursday, I think we'll have pretty minimal rainfall impacts, and a couple of more showers and thunderstorms will start to move through ahead of our next cold front towards the weekend. It's been a hazy day, but it certainly feels fantastic out there. You can see those hazy skies pretty much from every angle, and certainly not as hazy as it was from yesterday, but it's going to be looking and feeling good for today, Wednesday and Thursday. That's when we'll likely see some of the humidity back in, as well as temperatures really starting to increase towards the weekend. So for today, high temperatures in the middle 80s, nothing but sunshine. Quiet, calm conditions expected in the forecast for today. Temperatures will trend a little bit downwards, especially by the time we get to Thursday, just because of the clouds, cool temperatures, and the impacts from that coastal low pressure system. We're going right back up Friday, Saturday. We're going to be in the upper 80s, close to 90. Of course, the warmest day of the year so far was 88 back in April 5th. So we will have the chance to finally hit 90, something that we have not done just yet so far this season. We'll keep the rain chances around pretty much from Thursday and then right back up towards the weekend. Again, as our next cold front starts to come along, a couple of chances for some thunderstorms will certainly be possible. So for today, it's Chris Mulcahy's pick of the week, and I agree with it. Highs, middle 80s, sunshine, fantastic. Tomorrow, not too bad at all. More cloud cover, lower 80s, a little bit more humidity starts to enter back into the picture. Thursday, that's when we'll see the rainfall impacts from that coastal low. Be out of here by Friday. Going to be warming up with a couple more thunderstorm chances for the weekend.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Wednesday because it's a little cooler, but I'll take today. I'm not going to disagree with Chris. I don't want to do that.
Today, it will feel fantastic.
Okay.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Becca Bursaw, thank you for your time.
Yes, good to be here.
Thank you. And before you go, I want to make sure I get this in because we have a hurricane special coming up. And it's tomorrow. I wanted to say Thursday, but it's tomorrow. Like this May and June are just, oh my goodness. Okay, anyway, I digress. On June 4th, tomorrow, our Weather Impact team will host Hurricane IQ, a WCNC Weather Impact special. They'll walk through the hurricane predictions for this year, take a look back at the devastation from Helene, and explain the science behind hurricanes. It will help you be prepared this hurricane season, and you can catch it on air or streaming on WCNC Plus on June 4th at 8 p.m. I'm excited, Becca, for this special.
Yeah, it'll have some great information there, especially as we kick off the start of hurricane season and what people can expect going into this season. Of course, it's supposed to be above average, which is exactly what we saw basically the past 3-4 years. And it only takes one bad storm for it to be a bad season. So some good information there.
And Becca will be back in about an hour, so we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you, Becca, for your time.
Of course.
All right. Again, you want to tune in tomorrow night on air, here on streaming as well. We'll play that special. A lot of great and helpful information there. All right, so we want to turn our attention to a trial we've been covering 7 weeks, 26 days. Today is the 26th day of testimony in the Karen Reed trial. Karen Reed is charged, and here's a live look from inside the courtroom. Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence and leaving the scene. She's accused of striking John O'Keefe, her Boston police officer boyfriend, with her SUV back in 2022 and leaving him to die alone in the snow outside of a house party in Canton, Massachusetts. That's what she's accused of. Again, on the stand, she was on the stand a bulk of the day yesterday. Well, this is Dr. Marie Russell, emergency physician and forensic pathologist. And she is the third defense witness, or she was the third defense witness on Monday. Again, she testified for a bulk of the day yesterday. Let's take a listen in to what she has to say right now.
Operations.
And did you honestly and scientifically consider those other possibilities as you continue to review the information, old and new information in this matter?
Yes.
And did that process allow you to avoid confirmation bias?
Yeah. Yes.
So in terms of that process, now let's go through some of the items that Attorney Brennan discussed with you. He asked you several questions, one of which, did you evaluate news clips and audio clips? You remember that questioning?
I remember a question about some,
Right.
some news clips.
And did you recall your discussion with Attorney Brennan about acute grief reaction? You remember that discussion?
Yes.
Now, in terms of acute grief reaction, you talked about it, and do you recall discussing that sometimes people who have a traumatic event, that acute grief reaction occurs? You recall that discussion with Attorney Brennan?
Yes.
Now, do you recall also mentioning that sometimes these patients engage in self-blame?
Yes.
And my question, among others, is when they go to self-blame, from your experience as emergency room physician, seeing patients with this, as you discussed with Mr. Brennan, are there instances when patients blame themselves for something when they're not to blame?
Sustained.
Can you discuss what you meant by self-blame in acute grief reaction?
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there is the Karen Reed trial. Looks like they've gone on to a sidebar. So as soon as that, you know how this works. As soon as they pop back on and we have a moment, we will take you back out there live to that trial. A very interesting testimony from yesterday. Again, just to recap to what's happening there in the Karen Reed trial, in case you missed it, Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence and leaving the scene. She's accused of striking John O'Keefe, her Boston police officer boyfriend, with her SUV back in 2022, and leaving him to die alone in the snow outside of a house party in Canton, Massachusetts. Her defense team has said she is the victim of a vast police conspiracy and that O'Keefe was fatally beaten by another law enforcement officer at that party. Again, this is a trial that has gained national attention, a trial that has also been the subject of documentaries, so a lot of eyes, a lot of attention, which is why we want to bring you the latest developments in this case as far as the trial on Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. And again, as soon as we get the trial back up and running, they do this song and dance where they will go into recess, so they'll take a break. But as soon as we get somebody back on the witness stand, we'll get back to it. All right, what's gears? Let's totally reset. Let's reset. I feel like I want to say 1001, 1002, 1003. All right, let's
reset.
Reset. All right, so we want to. It's a pretty cool story.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
You tell me, Nick.
Okay. All right. I like the setup, Carlene. So this weekend, the South Carolina Ag and Art Tour, which is a free self-guided tour of farms and markets that feature local artisans at every stop. It will be in York County. Doing some research on it, I'm like, how? And I feel ashamed. 'Cause I'm like, how didn't I know about this?
Yeah.
I'm from the Carolinas.
I lived in York County for a couple years.
Did
now.
you? Have you been?
Big fan.
Have you been?
I haven't been.
You haven't been, but
No.
you've heard about this.
Oh, I have.
Okay. And I'm interested. Interesting enough, there are about 150,000 people that have participated since 2012. Again, it's in York County. So if you're here in the Charlotte area, it's not a far drive at all.
No.
We were giving one of our directors sort of a idea where York County is. I'm like, man, as soon as you cross the border, you're
Yeah, he's
right
in
there.
Concord, so he's like, he doesn't venture out that way. You need to venture down that
Right.
way.
There's a lot of great things happening in York County. And that's why we have Andy Clinton, President and CEO of Visit York County, in today, coming with some treats.
I did.
Andy, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, I did not come empty-handed. Thankfully, I was passing through, and I was actually going by one of the farms, Black's Peaches, and she filled me up with you guys. So thank Beth White. She hooked you up with all kinds of stuff.
So, let's get a wide shot of this. As you see right there, this.
Look at all that.
Look at it. We got corn. We got some tomatoes, some peaches,
Mm-hmm.
cantaloupe. I see there. All right, yeah, we'll address that at the interview. So, talk about the Ag and Art Tour. What can? So, I've never been, and I'm very interested in this. Talk about it. What can folks expect when they go out there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the largest free farm tour in the country. So, and it actually started in York County in 2012, and because of the popularity of it, really the whole state gravitated towards it. And Clemson Extension, so a part of Clemson University, really started this whole program, and it's now in 22 counties across the state. Wow. So, but York County started it, so we have that claim. We have 18 farms that are participating this weekend, and that tends to change a little bit day to day, but I believe that number is still right, that it's somewhere in the ballpark of 18 farms participating from across the county. And I've participated in it the past few years, either as a volunteer or, I'm taking my family. I have a 5 and 2-year-old and wife, and we did it all last year. We hit 4 farms, and basically, I mean, we mapped out our plan a few days before, as far as, you get out the Google Maps and like, okay, so we're going to go what strategically makes sense
Sounds like
as
Disney
far
World.
as right, so you map out throughout the county, all right, so we're going to hit these 3 farms or these 4, and which ones have, animals that you can pet, or who's a pick your own, or who's more, it's picking your own flowers, or all these farms have different demonstrations, or there's a farm that's through the Greenway that has the Ann Springs Close Greenway that has a lot more farms, kid-friendly, but then there's one that's specific to flowers or picking blueberries, or one that's specific to the Catawba Indians and their culture. So really, you kind of pick and choose what fits best with you. But it's great. It's a really fun time. We love it.
And it like, if you're watching right now, you can see that's some of the video right here of what you can expect. So it's like we're kind of giving you sort of a sneak peek in case you haven't got a chance. Why is it important? Because you're picking the food that you're going to eat.
Yeah.
And why is that important for folks to experience that?
And I think that people are really gravitating towards that and really want to know more of that experience. And we're seeing that on, the analytics of our website, and we're, Visit York County. So we promote tourism throughout York County. So whether it's Carowinds or breweries or restaurants or sports tourism. So farms play a very critical role in that. We're finding that fall festivals are becoming increasingly popular. People want to know, how does this food get on our table, and how does the life of, farm life look like? And people want to know that. So agritourism makes up a big portion of tourism in the county. There's a lot of visitors. There's a lot of families. There's a lot of people from Charlotte coming down to these farms and going to, Windy Hill Orchard and grabbing, hard apple cider. I mean, we're figuring out, we have a lot of this software and analytics, and we're geofencing farms. And, a lot of these farms, Black Peaches, for example, last year, 40% of their customers, I think it was over 40% of their customers, came from outside of York County. So a lot of people, from whether it's Mecklenburg or Chester, Lancaster, wherever, coming into our county and experiencing the farms, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. It's tech meets rural living. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't think? I mean, I'm making that connection as you're talking about this.
Yeah.
That's a cool part of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the farms are really, us building the relationship with the farms, and we work really well with, I was talking about this earlier, that, an influencer or I say influencer, blog writer, the Farmer's Fee, that she's out of York County, but she helps us make those connections with the farmers. And, a lot of these farmers, they grew up on the farm, they know how to, but they don't know Instagram or a website or Facebook, and getting them to understand that, like, people want to know your story. They want to know, Black's Peaches, that it's been around for 100+ years, the family,
Wow.
and that's that's a really cool story to tell. People want to support that business. We got to make sure we're getting it out there, which is social media, being on here with you today, right?
Right.
That's it.
What? So York County is the first location for this tour. What? And I'm looking at the map too. I have it pulled up because there are other counties listed. So it's Richland and York County this weekend, and then after that it's Barnwell, Georgetown, Florence County, my old stomping grounds, Florence County.
You gotta make your way down there.
Oh man! So what? How does York County stick out amongst all these other counties in South Carolina that participate?
I would say just the variety, and really, our county is large. I mean, like you said, I don't think you guys, a lot of people don't realize, York County starts exit 9, like right at Carowinds. Half of Carowinds is in North and half is in South Carolina. And so half is in, York County, and it goes all the way down to, I'm a Interstate 77 guy, so it goes down to exit 73. I know exits, right? And then it goes pretty far west, going towards 85 and kind of Gaffney, or I don't want to get too much into geography, but York County's big, right?
Yeah, it is.
So we have farms all over the place. A lot of them are in western York County, but I spoke, it's the Black Snake Farm, which is the Catawba Indians. That's more on the eastern side and runs more along the Catawba River. So there's a lot of variety, and it's peaches or blueberries or the flower farms or ones that are more kid friendly. It's a really good variety. So that way, it speaks to really anybody that wants to come to York County. And if you have kids, or you're single, or you're older, or, it really gravitates to whoever, you're more into history, then this farm probably speaks to you. So I think that's what really sets us apart, is, just the variety that we have.
I remember growing up, I'm from the High Point, Greensboro area. And so we came to Charlotte all the time. I'm a Carowinds kid.
Yep.
And so I remember folks and family members would be like, I'm moving to Rock Hill. And that's back in the day when, like, Rock Hill, folks started moving to Rock Hill in York County. And to see it grow over the years, man, it's just like...
It's crazy.
It's just...
I feel like I'm a little bit in the minority now, as far as, I am born and raised, born in Gastonia, technically. Right at 2 years old, we moved to Rock Hill. And, I was having this conversation with somebody at lunch, the other day. Like, you always, in high school, you're like, I'm moving out of here, and I'm, you're not. And it's like, man, there's not a better place to live than where we are right now. And there's, back in my day, right? But, elementary school, middle school, it's, you had your handful of restaurants, but it's like, man, we got a lot to choose from now. We have lots, we have 13 breweries in the county. Like, that's crazy.
Unheard of years ago.
Yeah. So it was big news when we got our first brewery, probably, 10 years ago or so. And it's like, man, we have nightlife and we have restaurants. We have a restaurant week coming up in August. And it's like, you thought for restaurant week, and like, you had to go up to Charlotte. Like, that's just what you had to do, for shopping. You had to go to Charlotte. And it's like, man, we have some amenities down here now, which is pretty cool.
We're at the age, I don't know how old you are, I'm not going to ask you, but we're at the age where you can say, back in my day.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh man, I'm aging myself.
I don't want to neglect, we talk about the agriculture part, but the art part.
Yes.
Man, really, the area just, the entire area just has a really cool art scene. Can you talk about that and how that plays into this?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is an important art. It's the ag and art tour, and that's where we have a good relationship with Melanie Cooper and the Arts Council. They're very much a part of this and lead the charge on Ag and Art Tour in York County. All the artisans, they're local and they're all at each farm. And once again, there's variety there as far as art. That's a wide range. It could be woodwork or painter or pottery or local jewelry, or it's every, and that's where you honestly you need to go on our website, right? we have a good robust website. We have a blog. We did a blog specifically for this, and you can really see okay, so I want to go to this farm because it's this artisan and it's it's pottery. If you're interested in pottery, then you need to go to these two farms. But yeah, we have the blog and we have the social media videos, and look all over our Instagram or website, and we got all that covered for you. Make it easy.
You guys are busy. I checked it out. I'm like, man,
a lot going on. Staff of 7, and we're pinging all over the place.
Oh man, look, that is Andy Clinton, President, CEO of Visit York County. Do yourself a favor. Not only visit York County, make sure you go to the Ag and Art Tour. Let me make sure you get the right dates. June 7th and 8th. So this weekend. It's coming up. York County. You don't want to miss it. If you miss it, you have to travel all the way to Barnwell County, Georgetown. You don't want to do that.
Stay here.
York County,
where it's at.
Where it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much. Hang tight with us because we, obviously we want to talk about some of this stuff that we have over here. This nice, lovely produce. Thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping in.
Appreciate it.
That Andy Clinton right there. Thank you for your time again. All right, so do we want to go back to Karen Reed? All right, so let's go back to the Karen Reed trial. It is happening live right now. Now it looks like they're going to a recess. Let's pull up something else. Want to do the pearl? Yes, let's do the pearl. All right. Make sure I get my ducks in a row here. And again, they're wrapping up. It looks like, let me not say wrapping up. It looks like they're taking a recess.
It looks like they're going to lunch.
Okay. All right, so I'm good to go. All right. This is what happens on Live Impact News. Things happen. We have to shift and go live events to something else. So, again, bear with us. All right, so we want to get to a story that we followed yesterday because it's a big week in Charlotte. The city is welcoming its first innovation district. You may have heard about it. You may have seen this story during the 4:30 show. It's called The Pearl. The Pearl is designed to be a transformative space for the healthcare sector. WCNC Charlotte's Bria Smith spoke with county and community leaders about how the new addition is seeking solutions here in the Queen City. Here's a few of those interviews that she was able to do there.
Talk to us a little bit about, obviously you could hear just a few seconds ago the excitement of not only just outside but also in the room. What does this mean to be able to open the doors finally?
Well, this is a big moment for the community. It is something that's going to be transformational. When you think about future generations, what this means, the opportunity, and it's just an amazing achievement for this community.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about the jobs, right? I know 40% of those jobs won't require a bachelor's degree, which is a lot of, what people think they might need at the very least. But the different kinds of jobs that this will bring.
Right. So when you think about from a tech perspective, when you think about even the medical school, but a high percentage of those jobs will not require a traditional college degree, is opportunity for everybody across the board. That's what makes it so exciting. So whether you're in medical school or not, there's still opportunity to train, grow. There's an opportunity for upward mobility. That's exactly what we want to do in the community. So it's just an exciting time. This is an exciting moment for our community. I hope everyone marks this moment because it is certainly the catalyst to transformation.
Absolutely. Lastly, kind of talk about that 4-year, the first year, the 4-year medical school. How big for transformation that will be, especially for the students?
It's huge. When you think about, we were the largest community in the country without a medical school. Now we have one. So that's just another crown in the jewel of the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. We're just proud of that. We needed to have that. We can't export talent. We've got to keep talent here. We've got to grow our talent, and this is one of the ways that we get to do that.
Absolutely. And I know that was lastly, but very lastly, talk about those age ranges that will be able to utilize the Pearl. I know they said they started from like the 5th grade all the way to really, medical school.
I look at it from cradle to the grave, right? There's something for everyone to be able to utilize it, whether it's coming through for the purposeful walk, there's a mental health component to it, there is a science and technology component, there's a community component to it. So it's for everyone, all ages, and so we're excited about that.
What was, for me, and for people who don't know, the Brooklyn area, and what is the Brooklyn Coalition?
The Brooklyn Coalition is our resiliency is to remember, to remind, and to reclaim the Brooklyn area.
Actually, it was predominantly African American. Talk about that community, what it looked like, what it stood as.
This today brought tears to my eyes, as you see. It brought tears to my eyes to think what this was. It was nothing but ground where we played on this playground. I attended school there. I was born where the courthouse is. And this is the ground that I went out for cheerleader for Second Ward. I am an alumni of Second Ward. And it just brought tears to my eyes to see what this land could be. I had no idea, no vision of it. But I'm not proud because so much has changed. And the thing that I came from a place that could be this great, and this is Charlotte, from what it was. Now we don't have to travel afar for medical help. It's right here. And I'm so glad that they are planning to bring an end to illness.
And not only that, now not only is access to health care just, arm's reach away, but also students, who are wanting to be a part of that medical change there, there's a 4-year school here now, so they get the chance to not have to go away.
Right. I'm looking forward to our children being a part of here, that they would have scholarships, grants, and jobs to work here also.
Absolutely. Lastly, obviously you can't ignore the beautiful dances, the music that's going on. Obviously, this is just a reminder that Brooklyn is rooted in this new development.
The innovation that it was rooted here, yes. I am very proud of it. And this land is my land, your land, and everybody. Let's work together to make it better.
As we gather here today to celebrate the Pearl, we also acknowledge the Brooklyn community. Its legacy endures not only through historical records, but through the stories so generously shared by the persons who lived here, worked here, and built their lives here. It is this legacy, this unwavering backbone, that greatly informed our design, as well as positions the Pearl to be a truly authentic innovation district, which will be inclusive. Yes, today marks a pivotal moment, not only in the future of this neighborhood, but the collective efforts to bring a world-class 4-year medical school to Charlotte and to diversify its economy. Already renowned as a global hub for banking and fintech, the Pearl represents a bold new direction, one that champions research, life science, innovation, and entrepreneurship, all rooted in a community with a deep history and resilience. At Wexford, we refer to this kind of innovation district as a knowledge community. And at the Pearl, this came to fruition through collaboration with our partners. Atrium Health, with special recognition to Jean, to Colin, to Bennett, Hillary, and Steve. Wake Forest University, IQ, Ventas, our capital partner, the City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the greater community. The Pearl was also designed in the spirit of collaboration by 3 architectural firms, Ayres St. Gross, locally owned and operated neighboring concepts, and co-architects. And the Pearl was engineered by Kimley Horn and constructed by a joint venture with Whiting Turner and locally operated R.J. Leeper. Last but not least, the Wexford Charlotte team. Caroline, Bob, Susan, Daniel, Jay, and Craig, the entire Wexford team. All of these organizations, all of these names, you talk about an amazing collective effort to bring the Pearl to fruition. Let's take a moment. Let's imagine a day in the life of the Pearl, the ecosystem. The brightest medical students, they will walk through those doors. The Howard R. Levine Center for Education, home of Wake Forest's medical school in Charlotte. They will be trained by renowned physicians and professionals. The building will stand as a beacon in the Charlotte skyline, illuminated as a symbol of ascension through education. The connector building, the building that connects this building and the adjoining building, features a state-of-the-art 250-seat auditorium and offers seamless access to industry from the academia building. 905 Pearl Parkway building, it's a 10-story, multi-tenanted research building. It was designed to maximize opportunities for collaboration and innovation, welcoming researchers and companies of all sizes, a single bench to a global firm. So for example, on the 7th floor, Wexford Connect Labs, we will be offering 30,000 square feet of finished space, including space for wet labs, dry labs, office space, for researchers, startups, landing pads for large companies. Connect Labs will also provide short-term license agreements, shared equipment, a continuum of services to wrap around the tenants so they achieve proof of concept and reach commercialization faster. Then, on floors 5 and 6, approximately 60,000 square feet will be the home of Siemens Healthineers, a global provider of healthcare imaging equipment, solutions, and services. As we continue to move through the building, floors 1 through 4, approximately 126,000 square feet, will be the home, the house for EarGap, exclusive North America headquarters, exclusive North America headquarters. As a premier global surgical training organization, EarCat will create a gravitational pull. We will bring surgeons from across the country and around the world to the Pearl to be trained. On floors 8, 9, and 10, we are currently in advanced conversations with prospective tenants, which will strengthen the ecosystem at the Pearl. We have limited space left in that building, but I am so excited to tell you that we are already designing the next research building for the Pearl. Equally vital to a thriving.
All right, so that was a story from yesterday. The Pearl opening in the newly Innovation District. You can check out that story now by our WCNC Charlotte's Bria Smith on our website and on our app. Let's go now because the White House briefing has just started there in D.C. That is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. I believe she is speaking about the shooting in Colorado recently. Let's listen into her remarks.
Biden administration's failed policies. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the bolder suspect is an Egyptian national who was in the United States illegally. He entered the U.S. during the Biden administration in August 2022 on a B-2 visa until it expired. Upon the visa expiration, he overstayed, filed an asylum claim, and was given a work authorization by the Biden administration. Instead of deporting this heinous individual, Joe Biden's administration allowed him to stay in our country and to work. President Trump sounded the alarm over these reckless Biden policies for years because this is the predictable result. of letting anti-American radicals and illegal immigrants pour into our country. Immigration security is national security, and that's why the Trump administration, at the direction of our great president, has secured our border, strengthened our immigration system, and has taken immediate steps to protect the United States from foreign terrorists and other public safety threats. President Trump acted swiftly upon taking office to reform our visa issuance process to ensure that dangerous aliens who are intent on harming Americans or our national security interests are no longer admitted into our country. Under the Trump administration, aliens will only be admitted into the United States through the legal process and only if they do not bear hostile attitudes towards our citizens, our culture, our government, our institutions, or most importantly, our founding principles. Under President Trump, the United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorism. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, will continue to face visa denial or revocation and deportation. And illegal alien criminals will continue to be arrested and deported from our country. On that note, ICE and federal law enforcement partners just wrapped up a month-long surge operation arresting nearly 1,500 illegal aliens in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. During the enhanced operation, dubbed Operation Patriot, ICE Boston and other federal law enforcement personnel focused on transnational organized crime, gangs, and dangerous illegal alien offenders throughout Mass. More than half of the nearly 1,500 illegals arrested had significant criminal convictions or charges pending against them. Here are just some of the violent illegal aliens who were removed from communities in Massachusetts during Operation Patriot. A Salvadorian national with active Interpol red notice for aggravated homicide. A Guatemalan national and registered sex offender who had pending criminal charges in Boston for 5 counts of indecent assault and battery on a person 14 or over. A Honduran national who was last arrested for rape, indecent assault, and battery of a person 14 or over. A Colombian national charged with kidnapping, aggravated rape, and indecent assault and battery on a person 14 or over. And a Guatemalan national who was convicted of murder in Boston. Also, a Brazilian national who was charged with aggravated rape of a child by force and possession of child pornography. Again, these are people who are living in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And lastly, a Salvadorian national whose criminal history includes charges of aggravated rape of a child by force. I don't think anybody in this room wants these types of heinous criminals in your communities. And it's thanks to this administration that they are being removed from our country. When Democrat-run jurisdictions released violent illegal alien criminals back into communities after making arrests instead of turning them over to federal immigration enforcement like they should, those Democrats are putting law-abiding Americans at risk. And these insane policies force law enforcement officials to make much more difficult arrests that put their lives, our law enforcement lives, in jeopardy. President Trump is incredibly grateful for our heroic officers on the front lines getting these violent illegal alien invaders out of our communities. Law and order is back in America under President Trump. And on that same note, there are new crime statistics that show crime is plummeting. In fact, Politico summed it up like this. Murder rates are tumbling across the U.S. in 2025. Homicide stats are down at least 20% over last year, and we could be on course for the lowest number on record. With President Trump in charge, the days of criminals being put over victims are over. On the topic of immigration, the Washington Post just ran one of the most ridiculous headlines ever, even by their standards. And on my very first briefing, several months ago, I said I would hold anyone accountable in this room. The Washington Post actually had this headline, "The Mysterious Drop in Fentanyl Seizures on the U.S.-Mexico Border." How is this mysterious? There is no mystery about why there is a decrease in fentanyl coming into the United States. This administration's strong border policies are the reason there has been a decrease in fentanyl trafficking. His strengthened relationship with Mexican President Sheinbaum and all of the measures he has been taking to deter illegal human and drug trafficking at our United States southern border is the reason for plummeting fentanyl seizures at the U.S. border. There is nothing mysterious about that, and we'd like to see the Washington Post update their headline accordingly. This is clearly trying to intentionally manipulate the minds of the Americans, and I think the American people understand why there's been a fentanyl drop. And our office responded to this inquiry. We provided a whole host of the reasons that fentanyl seizures at the southern border have dropped, and the Washington Post refused to run them, and that's despicable. In other news, positive economic reports continue to flood in. Inflation dropped to 2.1% in April. Personal income increased 0.8% in April. So inflation is down and wages are up. That's almost triple the expectations and against the doubts of nearly everyone in this room. And we also saw the largest monthly decline in the trade deficit on record as a result of President Trump's very powerful tariffs. Lastly, the price of eggs has dropped more than 61% since President Trump took office in January. I remember my very first briefing, I was asked about the cost of eggs. The reporter tried to insinuate it was this administration's fault, even though he had only been here for a few days or weeks. It was a result of the previous administration's terrible policies, and in record time, this president has fixed that problem that he inherited from Joe Biden, and now egg prices have dropped 61% since this president took office. There's a lot of good news, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so let's get to them. We have just the news and our new media seat today. Amanda Head, thank you for being with us. Why don't you kick us off?
Sure, thank you so much. There is a disturbing trend of anti-Semitism turning into terrorism. Of course, the Boulder, Colorado instance that you just mentioned, the 2 Israeli embassy staffers who were murdered, Pennsylvania governor's mansion with the Jewish governor inside getting set on fire. Does the president consider this domestic terrorism? And as such, are there official alerts to law enforcement, BOLOs, task forces, things like that?
The president has made it very clear, as he said in his statement yesterday, that yes, these anti-Semitic acts of violence are do qualify as terrorism, and he does not want to see terrorism or violence of any form taking place in the United States of America. And as for specifically anti-Semitic terrorism and anti-Semitic acts of violence and those that are targeting Jewish Americans, this administration has done more to combat that violence than any administration in history. And one incident is one too many. And I think, frankly, that's something the previous administration was not willing to say. This president will stand up for Americans of all religions, of all faiths, of all creeds, and we will continue to look at policy measures and actions that we can take in addition to the actions that have already been taken to curb this anti-Semitic violence. And to Jewish Americans at home, across the country, this president has your back.
And then on another issue, back in February, Secretary commissioned to re-examine the childhood vaccine schedule. But there are still states outstanding like California, Connecticut, Maine that are not allowing any religious exemptions for kids not only to go to school but to participate in sports and extracurricular activities. Would the president want to see religious exemptions allowed across all 50 states? And how do you enforce that, especially with states like California that are already defying the president on the men and women's sports issue?
Generally speaking, I know the president supports religious exemptions for families when it comes to vaccinations. As for the instances in those specific states, I'll have the administration and the White House look into it and see what executive action, if any, we can take on that front. Thank you. Kelly.
Good afternoon. We're now in hurricane season, and obviously there is great concern every year about the potential for that. Can you speak to how the president is planning to have the level of support, should it be needed, to be as it has been with a reduction in the workforce? And is he still comfortable with Administrator Richardson, who had talked, whether joking or not, about not being aware of a hurricane season for this country? What is the president's level of briefings on what may be required? If you could give us kind of an overall update on that.
Sure. Well, of course, we know that we are into hurricane season now, and I know FEMA is taking this seriously, contrary to some of the reporting we have seen based on jokes that were made and leaks from meetings. But Secretary Kristi Noem and the FEMA leadership are all over this. They are committed to ensuring that federal resources and tax dollars are there for Americans in need, and the president continues to review requests for emergency aid and carefully considering them. However, this president has made it clear we're not going to enable states to make bad decisions with federal tax dollars and then have the federal government later have to bail these states out. We want to see states be responsible with their tax dollars to do as much as they possibly can, and then the president will deeply and thoughtfully thoughtfully consider any requests for federal aid that come to his desk. And I think some of the media reporting we've seen on this is frankly sloppy and irresponsible. There are serious people who are taking this issue seriously, starting with the president himself, who, as you know, on his first domestic trip back in office, visited both North Carolina and California, both of which were, of course, hit by natural disasters when he wasn't even president, but he took ownership of that and visited those places and those people immediately.
Is it
Brian?
about hurricane season appropriate, though, now that this is serious business, as you talked about?
It's serious business, Kelly, and I'm not going to engage in such fodder with a question like that. Brian?
Thank you, Caroline. Reuters was reporting that there is a letter that is meant to be sent to other countries, which would give these countries a deadline of Wednesday to produce their best offer on the trade matter. Why does the administration feel the need to send this letter? And I have one more follow-up on trade.
Sure. I can confirm the merits and the content of the letter. USTR sent this letter to all of our trading partners just to give them a friendly reminder that the deadline is coming up. And they are in talks. Ambassador Greer, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick are in talks with many of our key trading partners around the globe. As you know, Brian, I know the Wall Street Journal has covered this quite heavily. And they continue to be engaged in those discussions. And this letter was simply to remind these countries that the deadline is approaching and the president expects good deals, and we are on track for that, I will emphasize.
On the trade side, though, when the deal with the United Kingdom, there was this idea of a reprieve on the auto tariffs. Is the president looking to do another similar deal on the sector-by-sector reduction in tariffs, or is this more going to be deals related to the reciprocal tariffs that were announced months ago?
Well, as I've said previously from the podium, and the president has discussed as well, each country has unique advantages, unique challenges to it based on their markets and what they export to us and what we export to them. And so that's why the president smartly advised his trade team to engage in tailor-made deal-making. And we saw that with the United Kingdom, and we will see that with other countries as well.
Kate, does the president support the Senate moving forward with the bill imposing heavy sanctions on Russia?
Look, the president has spoken about his position on sanctions on Russia. He has smartly kept this as a tool in his toolbox if necessary, but I think the Senate and everyone on Capitol Hill respects is the commander-in-chief for a reason. And as you know, Russia and Ukraine engaged in direct talks yesterday. That was at the encouragement of this president when he spoke to both leaders of both countries via phone just a couple of weeks ago. And so I would just like to remind everybody how far we have come in just 4 months. I mean, it was inconceivable last year at this time for Russia and Ukraine to be engaged in direct talks. And it's because of the president's insistence and determination to get this war to an end that these countries sat down yesterday. So he's willing to use sanctions if he needs them, and the Senate and the Capitol Hill understand that the president is the commander-in-chief and he's leading United States foreign policy as he should.
And on Iran, the president said that the U.S. would not allow for any uranium enrichment, but the proposal offered to the Iranians reportedly allows for low levels of enrichment. Can you explain that discrepancy?
I'm not going to comment on alleged details of the report. We're not going to negotiate through the media out of respect for these ongoing discussions and negotiations that Special Envoy Witkoff is leading. The president made his position very clear on Truth Social last night. In fact, it couldn't be any more clear, and I would reiterate that's his position. Special Envoy Witkoff sent a very detailed and acceptable proposal to the Iranian regime that the president hopes they will accept, and if not, they will face grave consequences, as the president himself has reiterated. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline.
You're welcome.
A couple of things, if I may. Firstly, can you confirm whether or not President Trump is going to be going to the NATO summit in The Hague later this month?
I can confirm he will be going to the NATO summit, yes.
Okay, great, thanks. And another question on the Netherlands, in fact. Just wondering if you have any reaction to the collapse of the Dutch government there after the anti-EU and anti-Islam leader Geert Wilders, who's been described as the Dutch Trump, pulled out of the government there.
I don't have a comment on that, but certainly we should and we will get you one, okay?
Thanks.
You're welcome. Brett.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask, a couple days ago, the president announced that he was withdrawing the nomination of Jared Isaacman to lead NASA, citing a thorough review of prior associations. I wondered, why did this review happen just now, after the nominee was so far into the process? And can you explain the president's thinking on who he might choose?
Look, the president reserves the right to nominate individuals to key administration posts. He also reserves the right to remove remove those individuals if he chooses, just like he reserves the right to fire anybody in the executive branch that he wants. And so a new replacement for NASA will be announced very soon, as the president himself said.
Was there something in particular that came up that caused the president concern with this nomination?
The president wants to ensure that all of his nominees are aligned fully with the America First mission of this administration. And again, he will be announcing a replacement very soon. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
It's been just about a month since President and Prime Minister Starmer announced...
I can't see you all the way back there. Phil's head is in the way. There you go.
So it's been just about a month since Prime Minister Starmer and President Trump announced that the U.S. and U.K. had reached a trade deal, or at least a framework for the deal. Now there are at least some conservative MPs in London who are complaining that Parliament has not yet seen the text of any deal. So I'd like to ask you from this side of the pond, is there a text for the deal ready to be released, submitted? And if not, when can we expect it? And then I have one more.
There's most definitely text with this deal. There is language that this side has seen. You'll have to ask the UK Parliament why they haven't seen it from their own government. I obviously can't answer that question.
And on Caroline, one more on Ukraine, please.
Jonathan. Sure, go ahead.
On Ukraine, it's been a couple days since Ukraine made that audacious drone strike on Russian airfields. The president hasn't said a word about it, and usually he's not shy about making his thoughts known on the war. Well, yeah, it's not bad. On the war or any other subject. What have you heard from him on this audacious drone strike? Is he surprised? He said that Zelensky didn't have the cards when they met in the Oval Office a few months back. Does Zelensky possibly have some cards that the president hadn't known about?
Look, the president's thinking on the Russia-Ukraine war as it stands, I spoke to him about it just this morning, is he remains positive at the progress that we've seen. Again, he urged both leaders to sit down and talk directly with one another, and they did that. Russia handed over a memorandum of peace, or a peace plan, or a suggestion of one, I understand, to the Ukrainian side. They also agreed upon the exchange of prisoners or hostages from each other's countries. So he remains positive about the progress that we're seeing, but he also is a realist, and he realizes these are two countries that are at war and have been for a long time because of his predecessor's weakness and incompetence. So he's working hard to solve this conflict, and that's where his mind is right now on it. Jonathan, go ahead.
Thank you. Same topic, just to put a finer point on it. Does President Trump approve of Ukraine's decision to strike nuclear-capable bombers in Russia?
I would like to let the president speak on that himself.
And just to follow up, has the president...
I would just add to that, the president does not want to see this war prolonged. He wants the fighting to stop, he wants people to stop dying, and he wants this to be solved at the negotiating table. The reason he is so deeply involved and has spent so much time and effort on this war is because he hates to see people dying. Again, these are not Americans that are being killed. These are Russians and these are Ukrainians. This is a war very far away. But this president truly cares about peace, and that's what he wants to see.
What is President Trump doing to ensure that a similar internal drone attack doesn't happen here in the US, given this was done at pretty low cost, very stealthily? You know, it obviously raises questions about our own security, particularly for US aircraft here.
It absolutely does, and that's why the president nominated Secretary Hegseth and has approved some of the changes that have been made at the Pentagon to ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, and that the United States military is the best, the biggest. That's why he wants the One Big Beautiful Bill to be passed, because it increases our defense spending. It's why he also launched the announcement of the Golden Dome to prevent from missile strikes and attacks in the future. And the president has a full understanding, I can tell you because I've spoken to him about it, about the future of warfare and how drones are a big part of that. And I will not get ahead of our policy team, but I think you can expect to see some executive action on that front in the very near future.
Caroline.
Caitlin.
Two questions for you as well. On the Big Beautiful Bill, you said recently that it is, quote, blatantly wrong to say that it adds to the deficit. You essentially said that an estimate from the Congressional Budget Office and other scorekeepers you believe are wrong. But Republicans Republicans like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul disagree. They are saying that it will add to the deficit. That is their concern. Is the White House's position that those two Republican senators are, quote, blatantly wrong?
It is. Those senators, it's not news that they disagree with this president on policy, and the president has vocally called them out for it and for their not having their facts together. I would add the Congressional Budget Office has been historically wrong. In fact, they predicted the Trump tax cuts from the president's first term in 2017. Their prediction was wrong by $500 billion. Those tax cuts had nearly $500 billion more of revenue than the Congressional Budget Office scored. And I would also point out, I don't think many people know this, there hasn't been a single staffer in the entire Congressional Budget Office that has contributed to a Republican since the year 2000. But guess what? There have been many staffers within the Congressional Budget Office who have contributed to Democrat candidates and politicians every single cycle since. So unfortunately, this is an institution in our country that has become partisan and political, and we are very confident in our own economic analyses of this bill. There is $1.6 trillion in savings, and our Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, is a fiscal hawk. He is well known in this city for being a well-respected fiscal hawk. He has tools at his disposal to produce even more savings. And as you know, the White House will be sending our rescissions package to Capitol Hill today.
And on immigration, the other day that the Homeland Security Secretary said, and I'm quoting her now, that an illegal alien threatened to assassinate President Trump and highlighted his arrest. A man has now admitted to framing him, saying that he wrote the letter that the DHS Secretary Christina posted online. Last I checked before I came into the room, that post was still up from DHS. Does the White House expect them to issue a clarification or a correction on that front?
We can ask the Department of Homeland Security and get back to you. Jeff.
Caroline, is the United States putting pressure on China to release its hold on rare earths that are hurting car companies and technology companies now that require that for their products, and is that pressure working?
Well, I can assure you that the administration is actively monitoring China's compliance with the Geneva Trade Agreement. I know the United States, on our end, we have complied with the terms that we set, and our administration officials continue to be engaged in correspondence with their Chinese counterparts. And as you all know, and I know there's a lot of interest in it, there will be a leader-to-leader talk very soon. And when that happens, as always, we will let you know.
Also in Asia, just does the White House have a reaction to the results of the election in South Korea?
Yes, we do. Let me find it here for you. It should be somewhere in here. Thank you. We do not, but I will get you one, Jeff. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions on trade. Is this letter that was sent to trading partners a sign that the president isn't satisfied with the pace of these negotiations? Is he trying to light a fire under these talks now?
Well, look, the president has been very direct to our trading partners in his conversations with them.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right now, you're watching live. The White House briefing is underway. That is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She is answering questions from reporters. Again, that is happening live right now. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Let's come back home because it's about that time. It's about that. Yeah, it is about
you said it before. You teased it before.
It's about that time. I'm looking at my watch.
You're teeing it up.
It is here. It is here. We're Becca Bursall is here. That's the time we're talking about.
Back in the house.
We want to talk about the forecast in case she missed it earlier. I'm not going to run down. Oh, maybe I will. A little bit. All right. Sorry. I got a chance to go outside before the show.
Yes.
And basically, my overall assessment of the situation, it's a nice pool day.
Yes.
It's a nice pool day.
Beautiful day, lower humidity, middle 80s. We're in June. This is really fantastic June weather for
Shout out to, I don't have any complaints today.
Yeah.
I may start coughing during some of the forecasts. We'll get to that when we get to that.
I was teasing him yesterday because you kept saying dust, and I looked at him and he looked at me. I was like, I know he's about to do some dramatic.
My eyes just, maybe watering.
It's all in his head.
Yes.
He's not even doesn't need to cough at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
We still have those hazy skies
Okay.
from the Canadian wildfire smoke. That will continue into tomorrow. And then we're replacing the smoke with the dust, like I mentioned before, that Saharan dust that's actually going to help prevent this tropical cyclone to develop, likely. That's way off into the Atlantic. And that's probably the biggest weather talker going into this week ahead. Of course, it is June, start of hurricane season, and this is the first official National Hurricane Center forecast for this hurricane season so far. It's a low chance of a coastal low pressure system forming, about a 10% chance within the next 48 hours to next 7 days, but will likely bring lots of rainfall from Florida all the way over towards the Carolinas. Now, while it will likely not be a named tropical system, it could take on some tropical or subtropical characteristics by the end of the week. Difference between that: tropical is more warm core and you got the strongest winds near the center. Subtropical, strongest winds are away from the center, and it's not nearly, you don't have this well-defined warm core like you do in the tropics. And my earring just fell off, so I apologize for that distraction. Another aspect of this forecast is also going to be that Saharan dust, and you can actually see it very nicely on the satellite there. And this is going to be interacting with that coastal low pressure system and also bring a plume of dust our direction starting Thursday. So once again, we'll have noticeably hazy skies out there. But what this dust is going to do, it's going to basically suppress convection. Convection is basically warm air rising and helps create clouds. And so when you have a layer of dust, just a dry air in the atmosphere, that prevents that from happening. So that's going to be a good thing going into this week ahead. You can see, though, this is still going to be a disorganized area of low pressure system. Showers and thunderstorms can be expected in our area starting early Thursday morning. So here we go in this futurecast. Dry today and tomorrow. Here comes the bulk of that rainfall. Some pockets of heavy rain, I'd say, are certainly possible, especially the further south and east you are from the Charlotte area. I think by around the afternoon, most of that activity will start to fizzle out. Highest rain totals will definitely be off towards the Carolina coast, and excessive rainfall impacts under a low threat from Florida all the way to the Carolina coast. And these areas in green that you see are areas that could potentially receive 2 to 4 inches of rainfall with this system. So areas of localized flooding will certainly be possible. Just really not something that we're expecting all around here in the Charlotte area. So I'd say between now and the next 7 days, over an inch is certainly possible. But I'd say just from Thursday's system, most locations will have a chance to pick up around half an inch of rainfall. So certainly not the soakers that the coast will likely see from this system. Outside right now, it is hazy from every angle, from Lake Norman over to Dallas and Anson County. And again, we'll continue that into tomorrow as well. Today, though, going to be fantastic for any outdoor activities. Lots of sun with highs reaching the middle 80s and lower humidity. We'll start to see that humidity go right back up, especially over the next couple of days, cooling down to the upper 70s by Thursday thanks to the clouds and all the moisture that we're expecting to get from that tropical system. After that, though, warming right back up for the weekend. We'll be brushing 90 degrees probably both Friday and Saturday before starting cooling down into the middle 80s for the start of next week. Rain chances go up to about a 40% chance on Thursday, and by the time we get to the weekend, a couple of chances for some scattered showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. So over the next 7 days, today will likely be one of the nicest. Sunshine, no rain in the forecast. Tomorrow, a little bit more humidity, but still low 80s, mix of sun and clouds. Thursday, rainfall expected. By the time we get to Friday, drier, just hot. Many locations will have a chance to hit 90 degrees, and if we don't hit it Friday, we'll have another chance to do it all again on Saturday as well. Of course, we have not hit 90 degrees so far this season, so we will have to wait and see if we officially hit that mark.
Okay, all right. Still no complaints. I'm not complaining.
That's good.
I'm good so far.
There is nothing to complain about today.
It is literally like a perfect. I hate to use the word perfect.
Yeah.
But it's.
You don't get many days like this in June.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, stop me from saying perfect because I was about to say it, but I'm not going to say it. But it's a great day. Thank you for stopping by for the forecast. Before you leave, before I forget, how could I forget? The Hurricane Special tomorrow, yes. June 4th. On June 4th, our Weather Impact team will host Hurricane IQ. You see it right there on your screen. It's Hurricane IQ, a WCNC weather impact special. They'll walk through the hurricane predictions for this year, take a look back at the devastation from Helene, and explain the science behind hurricanes. We'll help you be prepared this hurricane season. You can catch it on air or streaming on WCNC Plus. Again, that's tomorrow, June 4th at 8 p.m. You can watch it on air on WCNC Charlotte and here on WCNC Plus. Very, very important special, Becca. Very important special.
Absolutely, especially as we kick off the start of hurricane season. We already got a couple of areas of interest as well, so it's very relevant information. And of course, all of us were affected by Hurricane Helene last year, and going into this year, knowing that it's going to be also above average season. A lot of good information and topics that we'll all be discussing there.
All right, Becca, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking about the studio. All right, so do we want to go back to D.C., Carlene? All right, let's go back to D.C. That is the press secretary there for the White House. She is continuing to take questions from a reporter. Right now, underway is the White House briefing. So let's take a listen in.
If staffing needs are necessary, I'm sure Secretary Rubio would not mind hiring people if necessary. But again, we've been working with them day in and day out, and they're chugging along and doing great work. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions, if I can. President Trump got involved himself in presidential election in Poland by supporting a conservative candidate who ultimately won.
Yeah.
What does it mean for the future U.S.-Polish relations? What's likely to change?
Well, I believe the president is obviously pleased to see the result of the Polish elections. He met with Karol Nawrocki, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes, Nawrocki. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your insight on that. He met with him at the White House, and he told them, you're going to win because you support common sense. And he supported strong borders in Poland. He supported an end to the woke, radical DEI stuff that we've seen not just here in the United States, but really take over Europe and, frankly, the whole world. He was very outspoken about that. And I was reading the reports about how the Polish people felt about this man, and they felt like he was putting the needs of Poland first. And that's a very refreshing feeling, one that we know very well here in the United States of America. So as you know, the United States and Poland have always had a very deep and strong relationship, friendship. They're a great ally, and I know the president continues to look forward to working with them.
We have one more on Ukrainian drone attack on Russia. Was President Trump informed in advance by Ukraine that the attack is coming?
He was not. Carrie.
Caroline, so just want to go back to the issue on the anti-Christian bias as well as issues on anti-Semitic issues. Senator Grassley just put out a report saying that the FBI files have shown that the Catholic group targeting was way more prevalent within the FBI during the Biden era than was previously shown, as far as former FBI Director Christopher Wray was putting out there during congressional testimony. Can you discuss here what President Trump would like to see in terms of consequences within the FBI as far as those who were involved? Also, the second question, if the DOJ finds that the auto pen was used by President Biden, should those actions that were used with the auto pen, should they be null and void?
I'm not going to get ahead of the Department of Justice's investigation into the usage of the auto pen. And again, the question is not, was the auto pen used? It's whether or not the President of the United States knew it was being used, and if not, who was using it in his name, which is clearly illegal behavior. Deanna.
Thanks, Caroline. One on foreign policy, one domestic, if I can.
Sure.
On foreign, just speaking to the president's Truth Social post about Iran recently, saying that there will be no uranium enrichment. Is he saying that that's a red line for him, or no?
I already answered this question. The president's been very clear about where he stands on that.
Okay, and then on domestic, there's a report that Laura Loomer met with the vice president today. Can you speak to her relationship with the administration and if she's informally advising in any way?
She is not. I do know she met with the vice president as as for what was discussed in that meeting, I would defer you to his team.
Thanks, Caroline. I have one question on anti-Semitism, one question on China. So for years, radical leftists and Islamists have been calling for so-called globalize the Intifada. Do you believe this is a call for violence against Jews? And do you think these attacks on Jews around our country is what globalizing the Intifada looks like?
I don't want to speak to the merits of those claims without looking into them, but as I said, any violence against Jewish Americans will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Absolutely. And also, Secretary of State Rubio made an announcement saying he'll be revoking visas of certain Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party. Does that include sons and daughters of politicians, presidents, and chairmen?
Again, Secretary of State Rubio has the right to revoke visas, and he made the announcement that the State Department will begin to aggressively revoke those visas of Chinese students who are in our country, namely those with Chinese Communist Party ties, or those who could be a threat to our national security and the interests of the United States. Should both of you, go ahead and then back to you.
Thank you. There are now reports that Israeli forces are firing on Palestinians trying to get aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Up to 20 people, according to the Red Cross, have arrived to the hospital that they've set up with gunshot wounds, have died from them. Is this administration aware of these? And I mean, what is being done to address this situation?
The administration is aware of those reports, and we are currently looking into the veracity of them, because unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak. Unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything. Oh. Okay, so we're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action, and I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same to reduce the amount of misinformation that's going around the globe on this front.
Can you talk
John.
about the change in the leadership of the organization? What does that mean going forward, and why so early on is this happening?
What organization?
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Well, look, this was a creative idea that the president called for to get aid into the region. These people were desperate and starving, and the president didn't like seeing imagery of that, and he wanted to ensure that aid was brought in with the approval of Israel for understandable reasons. We will never forget the brutal attack on October 7th. And again, this is something that the previous administration was unwilling to put the time and effort into doing. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. I want to bring it back to the way you began your briefing, talking about the president's mass deportation program and his priorities. 40% of crop farm workers in the U.S. are undocumented, and that's according to the Agriculture Department. Do they have a carve-out in terms of the president's mass deportation program?
The president and the Trump administration have been very clear. If you are in the country illegally, you are subject to deportation.
Is there any concern that, given that large number, if that number is correct, 40% of crop farm workers being undocumented, that could impact the food supply here in America if those individuals that obviously help pick crops all across the country are deported en masse?
Again, this administration is focused on deporting individuals who are in our country illegally. It's something we have to do. We cannot allow the previous administration's invasion of our country of illegal immigrants to continue. We just can't have it. And this is a law and order president. As for our farmers and their concerns, they have a president who has their backs and listens to their concerns and hears them. But we also have a legal pathway to come to this country and work specifically for agricultural work. So there's a legal way to do it, and we encourage that legal pathway, and we're currently working on strengthening our legal immigration system for that reason. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. I just wanted to follow up on your statement last week regarding the Maha report.
Sure.
You said that there was, I understand there were some formatting issues with the Maha report that are being addressed, and that report will be updated. We also understand that since that, there have been some citations that came about. There's citations of studies that either did not exist or did not back up the report's conclusions. So when you were referring to formatting errors, is that what you were talking about, or was it, could you just explain that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. There were formatting errors, and those errors were updated by the proper policy components here at the White House, and a new report was issued. So exactly what I said took place. Sure, go ahead, Alec.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Good to see you. Congresswoman Mary Miller suggested that changing Pride Month to Family Month. I would personally like to see maybe a nuclear family month. Some people are saying, let's get a Veterans Month. Does the president have any plans on making a proclamation, or is it just going to be June this year?
Well, there are no plans for a proclamation for the month of June, but I can tell you this president is very proud to be a president for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or creed.
Caroline.
Reagan, go.
Thank you, Caroline.
And then I'll go to you.
Thank you. Colorado passed sanctuary protections for illegals 1 month before the terrorist attack this weekend. 2 questions. Why did the DHS remove the sanctuary cities list that it had published, which was ordered by the president? And then what is the administration going to do to further crack down on sanctuary jurisdictions to prevent attacks like what happened in Colorado?
Sure. The Department of Homeland Security will be issuing a new list of sanctuary cities, an accurate list of sanctuary cities. As for what we're doing to crack down, the president has signed various executive orders and has directed the Attorney General to prosecute state and local officials who are not complying with federal immigration authorities and, most importantly, federal immigration law.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
So, does the president take calls from foreign leaders on the tariffs on steel and aluminum? Does he still intend to double them tomorrow morning?
The president will be signing that executive order today, and steel and aluminum tariffs will be going to 50%, yes.
No way it's going to change, or it's going to be suspended?
He made that announcement in Pennsylvania, and he plans to deliver on that promise to Pennsylvanians.
And why is he hiding it?
And Ed, go ahead. I can answer that, but go ahead, Ed.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Caroline. So a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson today said that the U.S. imposed...
All right, so that is the White House briefing that is underway. Right now, we want to turn our attention to Hickory, where we are getting an update from authorities right now after a mass shooting on Sunday there in the Hickory area, I should say in Catawba County, near Hickory. So let's take a listen into this update that we're getting right now from authorities.
Other local agencies are helping. We are following leads that are coming in at a fairly rapid pace at this point, and we're still on the crime scene there on Walnut Acres Drive, processing that location.
Can you help us understand the party a little bit better? There's so many questions about the house down there, the people who live there. What happened that night? Were they charging money? Was it a graduation party? What was it?
Best information we have now is that it was an advertised party on social media. We do understand that money was being charged for admission, and the theme seemed to be centered around the pool that's on that property.
The homeowner wasn't there. Was somebody benefiting from the money and all this stuff, or like, did the homeowner even know what was going on?
We're still investigating those aspects.
When we go back to the conference on Sunday, you were talking about deputies responding to a previous noise violation. When they responded to that, was there consideration of shutting down the party at that point, or what was that? How did that interaction end?
It was a noise complaint that we responded to. We interacted with the controlling parties at the residence at that time. They did turn the noise down. Our deputies did warn them about the size of the party and our perceptions that it was unsafe. That party, though, was on private property, and legally we did not have the authority at that time to shut it down, as you would use those words.
Can you talk about why ALE is involved now at this point, what they're looking into?
We are benefiting from the assistance of alcohol law enforcement here in North Carolina. ALE's focus is underage drinking at that party, the party planners, and laws that might have been violated along those lines.
We had some folks reach out to us today telling us that possibly the suspects had been at the party, got into some type of altercation, left, and then came back. Is that what your investigation is finding at this point?
We're hearing some of those same things, and we're investigating those pieces of information along with many other tips that we're receiving.
Another person told us yesterday on camera that when the shots were fired from the wooded area behind the home up there, that some of the people at the party returned fire. Do you now believe that that is the case?
What I can tell you is that it appears to us that the shooting initiated from that elevated position in the neighbor's yard, and that persons that were attending the pool party were also armed, and there were shots fired by those people as well. Whether it was a direct return of fire, I can't confirm as I stand here, but both sides of that situation were shooting.
And this is after neighbors there tell us that the people had come down from the main road, Huffman Farm Road, kind of walked in, then got in the woods and started shooting.
We're looking into that as best I can offer.
Is there any more details you can share about the victim who died, or his connection to the party at all?
Not at this time. We understand that he was there helping with the party's promotion, but other than that, we're not sure.
Why was the party there? Like, I mean, they had to have got permission from the homeowner. How did that happen? I mean,
best we can offer right now is that was advertised again on social media. That location was picked by reasons known to the party's promoter, and again, the theme seemed to center around the pool that was there.
And they were possibly making money off of it.
We do understand that money was being charged to the attendees to enter.
Was the home being rented out or anything at that time?
I can't confirm that right now.
One more question.
When will families, people who have property still there, cars, vehicles, things of that nature, when will they be able to start getting access to those things?
The FBI, again, is still continuing the crime scene investigation. As soon as that investigation on the crime scene is over, we're going to contact the owners of those vehicles and make those arrangements. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Still thinking 80 rounds fired?
Can you explain
the
extension of the surveillance video?
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
That was my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
So we've asked initially, I think we sent out a map to you all about the areas where we're wanting people with Ring doorbell cameras and other types of surveillance cameras to look at. We've extended that. Now we wanted to go down Pittstown Road to Bethel Church Road and both directions on Bethel Church Road. Again, anyone that has cameras that might capture the roadway along Pittstown Road and then both directions on Bethel Church Road, we're asking them to contact us here at the Sheriff's Office, use the link on FBI.gov, and provide us that footage.
Thank you.
And that's it.
And have you guys shared a new map for that?
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay.
Watch that one.
Oh, and my
So I don't want to call this a press conference, but more of a gaggle there with Catawba County Sheriff's Office, giving us an update on a mass shooting there in Catawba County early Sunday morning. 12 people were shot, one person died. Right now, the FBI is offering a reward as the search for suspects continue. Here's what we were able to learn from this this interview, this gaggle that happened here just now. This was an advertised party. People were charged to get into this party, and deputies responded to a noise complaint initially, along with the amount of people that were there at the party. We also just learned that authorities didn't have the legal authority to shut down the party because it was on private property. Tips continue to come in. They continue to investigate different narratives of what happened. And as far as the Sheriff's Office knows and authorities know, the shooting originated from an elevated position from a neighbor or neighboring property, and people at the pool were also armed. So this party centered around a pool. So it's sort of a pool party situation that was happening there. Again, that was the update that we just got from the Sheriff's Office there in Catawba County. All right, so we want to shift gears. We want to come to the Charlotte area, Mecklenburg County to be specific. So we've talked a lot about this. We're talking about the budget here in Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County set to finalize a $2.5 billion budget. There are a lot of things that Julie Kay covers, some twists and turns in this budget, some things that we should know. So let's start there. What is the one thing or a few things that stick out from this budget that folks should know?
So the county is dealing with the same thing that pretty much every county in the state is dealing with, something the city's dealing with, and that is that the sales tax is not as much as they were anticipating or hoping. That's a post-COVID thing. It's just not growing as much as it would be prior to this. At the same time, we're dealing with all sorts of funding cuts coming from the federal side, potentially from the state. So people are kind of gearing down, buckling up, and we're not being very spendy this year. So this budget is going to come with some nonprofit cuts, some nonprofit nonprofit grants will not be renewed, and a slight property tax increase, assuming it's all passed as is now. That would be less than 1 cent. So for the average homeowner, that would just be $36 a year, but still something to note for sure.
Well, I guess what is the reaction from the budget? Is there, sometimes when it comes to budgets in general, there are people that are just really just upset about it, and some people that are just like, okay, hey, it's a budget.
I think it depends on who you ask at this point.
On,
But great points. I know that I listened in last week. They had their straw vote, which is just their informal, let's send this through the next round. It's where they talk about amendments, things like that, which we'll get to in a second. But there were 2 commissioners that were like, I don't want to push this through. I don't want to have to explain another property tax increase to my constituents. Of course, it's not necessarily a big one, but when we're pinching pennies at this point, $36 a year, still something people are thinking about. So there was a little bit of pushback, and I'm curious about what those conversations looked like in between, because that was only last Thursday. So it's only been, what is that, a long weekend, I suppose, in between. So I'm curious if there will be a lot of discussion back and forth tonight, or if it's just, we did that behind the scenes and now we're ready to go. In terms of the nonprofit cuts, that's definitely garnering a lot more attention, just because it is more significant in terms of the dollar figures we're talking about. That pretty much means eliminating this year at least their community service grants, which are one-time grants that nonprofits are given. Again, those can be, awarded again the next year, but they're per year basis. That's just not really happening this year. There are a few nonprofits that are going to get some funding. There are some that originally weren't, and that was changed in this last meeting. For example, Crisis Assistance Ministry, I spoke to them. They were generally funded, except for their financial assistance program. They help people who are facing evictions learn about, how to move forward from that. And that's, a service you usually have to pay for, and they offer that for free. So they got about half of the funding they requested for that, but we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars for even just this one nonprofit that was cut. So there are definitely some big changes happening.
Have you got a chance to speak with any of these nonprofits?
Yeah, a couple. And even what's interesting too is even some that aren't facing massive cuts right now are still nervous. I spoke with CareRing, and they do all sorts of things for people who are uninsured or underinsured in terms of health care. And they said, actually, we are lucky, the Mecklenburg County budget, we're going to be fine. But we are bracing for all sorts of other changes, state level, federal level. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. And so they even still decided to speak at the public hearing a couple weeks ago just to say, hey, this is what we've done with this ARPA funding you gave us a couple years ago. These are the numbers. This is what we're doing to help, because people even that are in these positions where they're okay now are still awaiting larger changes. So it really all wraps together.
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of the theme this year when it comes to the nonprofit sector. A lot of nonprofits that I spoke with just are kind of bracing for, they don't know what's going to happen next. So that's what sounds like that's the case there. I know it's set to be finalized. Do we have a timeline of when it will actually be finalized? That's the tricky part, right?
Asking some great questions, that's for sure. I would love to know. The meeting is at 6 tonight.
Okay.
So sometime tonight is expected.
Okay.
They've gone through all the steps prior to this in the timeline that was anticipated.
Yeah.
And so nothing that I've heard would, alert me to it's going to be a huge, long discussion, but knock on wood.
It was a 4-hour meeting last night, right?
And that was city, and so that's even smaller. Of course, still a big budget, but a smaller radius to work with. So that's another thing, too. We're talking about both city and county at the same time. So the city isn't expected to fully adopt theirs until next week. They had their straw vote last night. But like I mentioned, dealing with the same hurdles. Of course, sales tax revenue is not where we would hope, and kind of that post-COVID lull, and these larger federal funding cuts that could be coming. So everyone's just kind of hunkering down for now.
That's why we have Julie Kay here in the studio, because again, you got the Mecklenburg County budget, you got city budget. It's just a lot happening at one time. I think that's the sentiment with a lot of folks, viewers.
Yes.
It's like a lot happening at once.
I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. Right. So just bear with me. I know. But that is unfortunately just what it is right now. Bottom line is nonprofits will be facing some cuts potentially, and homeowners might be dealing with a little bit of property tax, but it's under 1 cent, so it's nothing major, but still of note, of course.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to the nonprofit sort of aspect of it, who determines who gets what? Like who gets awarded their full amount that they asked for, who doesn't? How does that process kind of work?
That's a great question, and the commissioners actually went back and forth on that, and that's why last week's 4-hour meeting was quite long, because they were going back and forth of like, well, this one, for example, Crisis Assistance Ministry. At first, they were like, okay, well, we originally funded them. I think it was $700,000 to $800,000 for this program. Let's fund half of that. Or one of the commissioners wanted them to fund it fully. Oh, what if we funded half of it for something else though, for rental assistance, because maybe that's more pressing right now. But we're already funding them for that. So it was a lot of back and forth. They are like at the point where they are doing this individually. So I know RAIN, for example, they work with patients with HIV and AIDS, and they work with education surrounding that here in Charlotte. I believe they got half of the funding added back in that they requested. So they did make some changes based on requests that happened after the initial proposal came out. But they're pulling at this point from their rainy day fund, and given we might have some rainy days coming, Dina Diorio, she's the county manager, she's kind of encouraging them to not pull too much of that right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a case-by-case basis. It's a great question. It's just kind of
what's prioritized that seems worthy at the time.
Right. And that right now is a lot of healthcare and housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Julie Kay here in the Live Impact studio, breaking down the Mecklenburg County budget and a lot of other things that are happening in the world of politics.
Just a little.
Yeah. Julie, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by. All right, that is a lot. So I'm glad we have Julie here to break it down. Yes. All right, so looking at the feeds right now, so we are awaiting a State Department briefing. The Karen Reed trial is also happening. I don't know if they are.
It looks like they're starting back up.
Okay.
Let me take a quick listen in here. Looks like.
So let me update you on this Karen Reed trial. Yes. So right now, it's day 26 of testimony, 7 weeks of the trial. And so Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence and leaving the scene. She's accused of striking John O'Keefe, her police officer boyfriend, with her SUV. That was back in 2022. This is actually her second trial. And right now, the witness stand testifying, emergency physician and forensic pathologist, Dr. Marie Russell. She was the third defense witness yesterday, and court adjourned before the prosecution was able to finish cross-examining her. So she's back on the stand today, as you can see right there.
She's been there since this morning. She's been there all day.
Yeah, a long day for her. She testified that she believes John O'Keefe had injuries consistent with a dog attack, which has been a new revelation in this case. Let's take a listen to what she has to say.
Briefly, how did she perform that internal examination beneath the skin to look at what was beneath the skin?
Well, to directly visualize those tissues, she had to open up the skin. So she opened up the skin in the legs from the buttocks right down to the bottom of the legs near the ankle, and then reflected or folded back the skin to examine if there were any injuries to the tissues underneath.
Were there any injuries to the tissues underneath from that examination?
There were no injuries that she mentioned, nor no injuries that I saw on the pictures.
And no injuries, did that include analyzing whether there was any inflammation?
No, you can't tell about inflammation, but I specifically looked at the area adjacent to a very punctate little abrasion on the knee, and I looked underneath of that area very carefully on the photograph, and there was nothing, no injury underneath, no bruising, no hemorrhage underneath that abrasion.
With regard to that, how did you describe that punctate? I want to make sure I got it accurate. By the right knee?
Abrasion.
Abrasion. Could you determine from that even the age of that abrasion?
I could not.
And no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. Mr. Brennan?
Could I inquire about scope?
See you type on.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Servant. Right there is the Karen Reed trial live. Looks like they are taking a sidebar right now. We'll get back to that as soon as we can. But let's turn our attention to the forecast. Here's WCNC Charlotte meteorologist Majestic Storm with a look at your weather.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm meteorologist Majestic Storm. It is gorgeous outside. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are warm. We'll see those daytime highs today rise back into the 80s. Little hazy still outside. As we're heading into our Wednesday and Thursday, though, you'll notice more cloud coverage moving in. The humidity will also increase, and then some scattered rain showers starts to move in as we're heading towards that time frame as well. You probably noticed over the last few days that there has been haze in the sky. It's really a mix of the wildfire smoke moving in from Canada and also some dust, but thankfully a lot of that is trapped in the middle levels of our atmosphere, so it has not made any big impacts on our air quality. Thankfully, we do have a light at the end of the tunnel, though. If you've noticed that haze in the sky and you want the return of beautiful blue conditions when we're looking up at the sky, I think really by the end of our work week we should be good to go because we have another system moving on through. Yesterday we topped off at 80 degrees. It was nice. Today we're kind of doing a rinse and repeat forecast, but add on 5 more degrees, so a warmer day is ahead. Look at us go. If you have any plans for the rest of your day, I say get outside and enjoy it. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Temperatures rising into the mid 80s. So if you pick up those kids after school, you want to take them outside, go to the park or the pool, today would be a good day to do that. Let's take you out to the mountains. That's where our temperatures today will rise mainly into the 70s. 76 degrees there in Boone, 83 for Hickory this afternoon, 84 out towards Lenore. Once we head a little closer to the Charlotte metro area, look at that beautiful sunny skies, 85 degrees in Lincolnton and 84 for Statesville. Little to the south now from Monroe over towards Chester, those mid 80 degree temperatures is where we'll top off today for our forecasted highs. Over the next 10 days, notice we do start to see those temperatures dip. We'll drop back into the upper 70s by Thursday. It's not just going to be a little bit cooler, that's also when we will have more scattered rain showers and possibly a few storms move into the area. Before this weekend, we warm things up. Saturday could be the first 90-degree day of the year. Want to break down our rain opportunities, though, because over the next 5 days, we're really going to be watching this system, mainly impacting areas right along the coast. We will have our fair share of some rain showers, though. Notice Tuesday and Wednesday, we don't have any issues when it comes to the rain. If you have plans on Thursday, that'll be likely when we do have some passing rain showers, and again on Saturday. Rain chances over the next 10 days. You can see it's not going to be widespread and heavy, but the opportunity for rainy conditions will start to ramp back up into the area. Want to walk you through, okay, we know it's going to rain. We have multiple opportunities for rain showers in that 7-day forecast, especially towards the later half of the week and into the weekend, but we're not going to get a whole lot of rain with it. So unfortunately, if you're looking for that rain, we're not going to get a lot unless you're a little closer to the coast. That's where they will have those higher amounts of rain. Now notice our humidity over the last few days has felt so nice. There's hardly been any, and we'll start to see more clouds move in, more precipitation move in, and that humidity is making a comeback as we head towards Thursday and Friday. Futurecast looking fantastic. If you want to do anything outside today, maybe you're heading out to the golf course, I say do it. It's going to be nice, so enjoyable. Then we will have more cloud coverage moving in for our Wednesday. That's early in the morning, no problems there. Wednesday afternoon, still a warm one, but we'll start to see those passing rain showers move in really by Thursday morning. That's when I need you to be ready for our next best opportunity for rain showers across the area. We could see a few brief and heavy downpours as well, but for the most part, you can see in our 7-day forecast about a 40% chance of rain here and there. Sunny and nice for your Tuesday. 85 degrees is where we'll top off today. More cloud coverage tomorrow, and then increasing rain chances really for your Thursday morning. Not rainy all throughout the day. We'll dry out on Friday with more rain showers moving in over the weekend. Have a great day.
And that was Majestic Storm with the forecast. All right, so let's head now to the Triad area, where earlier today there was a press conference to announce a new courthouse monitoring program by a nonprofit, Siembra NC. And this comes a day after an unknown number of people were detained by ICE agents at the Guilford County Courthouse. A Western Guilford High School graduate and current GTCC nursing student got a chance to share their accounts of her fiance's detention at a Greensboro laundromat on yesterday. So that press conference happened this morning again in Greensboro. Let's take a listen in.
Hi everyone, my name is Marlene Martinez. I'm part of the team at Siembra NC. We are speaking out today because what is happening in our community is not okay. We can confirm individuals were detained by ICE yesterday at the Guilford County Courthouse. The exact number is unknown. Of the people ICE targeted yesterday, Marlon Ivan Mendez was one of the people detained. While outside of a laundromat, federal agents in plain clothes approached them and started searching Marlon's pockets without saying anything. Jasmine Salvador, his partner, attempted to speak with them and ask them who they were, but they ignored her until they had him in handcuffs. They began to take her partner away, but not before the agents handcuffed her and told her to go back to where she came from. She is a U.S. citizen. These federal agents attempted to detain a pregnant mother while abducting her partner without a warrant. Jasmine had to deal with this traumatic experience as she awaits her due date in 6 weeks. Her baby shower was scheduled for this Saturday and has now been canceled. Jasmine and Marlon had plans to welcome their first child together, and now Jasmine faces not having maternity leave and navigating his detention and pregnancy alone without the father of her child. More and more we are seeing stories like theirs, both of hard-working community members being detained and of U.S. citizens being profiled by federal agents without warrants. This arrest and many others target people who are following the sentencing of local judges in the criminal legal system. They undermine due process, the rule of law, and trust in our overall court system. They punish and make it harder for people who lack legal status to attend their court dates and probation appointments. And let's be clear, these detentions do not keep us safe. So far this year, Siembra has supported over 40 families facing detentions, including many in the Triad. They have been detained during traffic stops, court appearances, and even while checking in with USCIS and other federal agencies because they are in a legal process to adjust status. We at Siembra are asking our congressmen and 2 senators for something very simple and very humane. Call for Marlon to be released immediately so that he can finish out his classes, return to work, and be present for his daughter's birth. We also want our local elected officials to make it a priority that the staff in our municipalities, counties, and cities are trained on helping defend their Fourth Amendment rights. And lastly, we have to be the ones that show up and take care of each other during this time. We are asking people in the community to pledge to volunteer to help monitor our local courthouses and ensure that due process, our Fourth Amendment rights, and the rights of people attempting to follow the recommendations of our criminal legal system are protected. To get involved, you can contact our hotline at 336-543-0353. And to donate and support families that are being impacted every day by detentions like Jasmine's, you can donate at tiny.cc/WeGotUsFund. This is not the time to look away. This is the time when we show up as a community to continue taking care of each other.
Family separation, of chaining pregnant women, violating people. We are ready, and we are hopeful, and we invite you all to join us in whatever way you can. Thank you.
Good morning, Reverend C.J. Brinson, faith leader at Umoja Church here in Greensboro. Happy to be here to stand with Siembra and other members of the community. I'll just say this, what seems to be happening here in America, there seems to be demonic forces plaguing our criminal justice and legal system, with law enforcement agents being an extension of that, terrorizing black and brown communities. So I'm standing here in solidarity as a black pastor with my community members within our brown community to say that what is happening here in our community is not a representation of Christianity. All over the country, there is a misuse of Christianity and other faiths happening to delegitimize human beings and their rights to exist peacefully in our community.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant, and right there you're watching from earlier today a press conference outside of the Guilford County Courthouse in downtown Greensboro. Siembra NC and ministers along with family members speaking on an ICE detainment incident there in Greensboro. To read more about that, head over to our website, WCNC.com, and check out the story on our app. All right, we want to focus our attention back to Washington, D.C., where right now the State Department is holding a briefing. Right here on your screen, that is Tammy Bruce. That is the spokesperson for the State Department. Let's take a listen in to what she has to say.
And Secretary Rubio in condemning the horrific terrorist attack in Colorado on the Jewish community, who were raising awareness for the hostages still being held by Hamas. Since the beginning of Secretary Rubio's tenure as Secretary of State, his focus on visas and the State Department's role determining who is allowed into this country has often been mocked, derided, or dismissed. This heinous attack is a reminder that the decisions about who we let into this country and who we allow to stay is of vital national security and personal security importance to this country and of Americans everywhere. As Secretary Rubio notes about this attack, quote, all terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers here on a visa should know that under the Trump administration, we will find you, revoke your visas, and deport you. Also today, the State Department is taking steps to impose visa restrictions on several Central American government officials who are responsible for deals with the corrupt Cuban regime to import medical personnel in their forced labor scheme. As Secretary Rubio notes, these steps promote accountability for those who support and perpetuate these exploitive practices. The Cuban labor export program abuses the participants, enriches the corrupt Cuban regime, and deprives everyday Cubans of essential medical care that they desperately need in their homeland. Our goal is to support the Cuban people in their pursuit of freedom and dignity, all while promoting accountability for those who contribute to a forced labor scheme. By pursuing these visa restrictions, the U.S. is sending a clear message about our commitment to promoting human rights and respect for labor rights worldwide. We encourage other nations to join us in this effort, end quote. Further, we are closely monitoring Mount Etna's eruption yesterday. We are not aware of any U.S. citizens affected at this time, and we are monitoring the situation closely. We strongly encourage U.S. citizens in the affected area to monitor local news and follow the emergency instructions provided by local authorities. We will provide information to U.S. citizens in the area through the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, messages, our consulate websites, social media, and at travel.state.gov as necessary. This is also an important reminder for all Americans traveling to enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program at step.state.gov. That's step.state.gov. And that is what I have for you right now. Looking forward to your questions. Let me get this managed here as we move into the day with a number of issues I know on your plate. Sean Tandon.
Thanks. Can I start with Gaza?
Certainly.
I know that Caroline Levitt spoke to this a while ago, but yesterday Ambassador Huckabee in Israel made a statement saying that media reporting is incorrect in terms of saying that there were incidents. Today we had the Red Cross saying that 27 people were killed, and Israel saying that confirming that they opened fire at first as warning shots in their description of how it transpired. Does the U.S. have anything to say about the deaths today and what it means for the aid effort there?
Well, the first thing I'd like us to not do is conflate different episodes. The earlier Huckabee statement, of course, the ambassador in Jerusalem for Israel, there was a series of events that were fake news, that were debunked, that were reported, though, as having occurred. And then there is a situation where there were reportedly 27 casualties at a site today, and the IDF has noted that they are investigating. So I think that there's an important difference. It's important for us to recognize the difference, certainly in a war zone, but when there is news that is not true, for us to be able to point that out. But then also, as we appreciate the fact that the IDF is investigating the latest incident, and we'll be watching that report and investigation and keep you advised.
Well, can I follow up on that? I mean, you're not disputing that there are 27 casualties today. I mean, regardless of.
Well, clearly the IDF is investigating a situation where there were casualties. Okay. So it's a number I can't confirm yet. But clearly we're going to get more information, and we'll be watching that and monitoring that closely.
Sure. But with the investigation, does this give any pause to thoughts about how this is running? There's criticism throughout of the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, the idea that it's not a humanitarian, not following humanitarian principles by having, for example, the Israeli military around there. Does this give any pause, any rethink about how this is going, considering you've had these?
Well, we wouldn't need, of course, the Israeli military as security. They wouldn't need to be there if Hamas would lay down their weapons and release all the hostages and the bodies that they're also holding. So let's not forget why this situation is maintained and is in the situation, the condition that we're in. It's important to not look at individual events in a vacuum in that regard, but also everyone has wanted food and aid to go through into Gaza. It is a war zone, and different kinds of decisions have to be made. People put their lives at risk to get the aid into those kinds of regions. And this is one of those cases. We'll find out through the IDF investigation what occurred, but the fact of the matter is, I think we are now at 7 million meals distributed to date. Now, obviously, we would like perfection. There is no perfection under any circumstance. We would like it to be even more, and they are going to be increasing, I believe, their sites. 4 more distribution sites that will include northern Gaza as well. So these are imperfect situations for catastrophic areas where the rest of the world has wanted this to be done. We have to try, and that's what they're doing. They're not only trying, they're succeeding in getting the meals distributed. And in the meantime, we're going to obviously be determining how that's working and how we can further improve, perhaps. And I would guess that they're going to, obviously, as the ones on the ground, make a determination about how to do this and refine it as we go on. Yeah, Andrea.
Let me just follow up on that, because no one should jump to conclusions. We all have reporters on the ground. Israel has not let U.S.-based reporters in, but we have partners there and staff members there who have been courageously there since October 7th doing this job. And if, unlike other war zones in Ukraine, in Iraq and elsewhere where U.S. reporters have always been in Vietnam, this is the first conflict where we have not been able to go in except with IDF escorts for particular photo opportunities. So that is one fact. But the ambassador, the chief diplomatic representative of the United States, ascribed a collective guilt to what he said was not just misleading reports in the fog of war. We all know what happens in some instances, and we're not sure that these cases. But to suggest that the press reports fostered anti-Semitism, which led to the death of the 2 embassy people here in Washington and to other anti-Semitic attacks in this country, is hyperbole beyond what is normal diplomatic practice. And as a journalist and as a member of this press corps, I think it's deeply offensive for someone who has.
Well, I don't speak for Ambassador
this
Huckabee.
region.
I understand, Andrea.
Conflicts
I know. I understand. And I understand the depth of your work and the work, Andrea. I understand your work, the depth of your work, the work of people who cover war, and the dangers that exist. I don't speak for Ambassador Huckabee. I'm not going to parse what he has said, but what I can tell you is that inevitably, as we have all watched, the kind of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism that has been promulgated through media has been nonstop, even after October 7th. And that if you weren't involved in that and others who are not involved in that, that's not who he's speaking about. I would argue that it would be naive to suggest that the Jew hatred that, whether it's through social media, through fake news, through the rhetoric regarding Israel, through the years, has not developed or perpetuated anti-Semitism. It's naive or mistaken. I'll give you that word. I think it's obvious that these things don't happen in a vacuum, and that the rhetoric against Jews for 2,000 years has been nonstop and quite blunt. And it hasn't stopped. And the way the world has responded recently in the 21st century to the attack on Jews, including what's been going on at American universities, has been obscene. So I think we should allow individuals to have their opinions about what has contributed to the murder of 2 Jews in Washington, D.C., who were simply enjoying a night out, who instead of being married in the next few months had to be buried. I think that this is not the argument, but it is the story, in that we are fighting a great deal with these stories about who's responsible, the focus on Israel, the nature of who's been attacking in that region, the responsibility of Iran, that we get food in, that's not good enough. What happens with Israelis and what they say is not good enough. What the President said, I'll reiterate here, is that we have got to move past all of this. There has to be new ideas. We have to end this circle. And that's what we're doing here. So when we think about, I think the ambassador, our ambassador to Israel, has every right and will speak his mind, as he is the ambassador to that important state that is constantly under attack. And it is a reasonable understanding of what has affected people worldwide, which is a rhetoric that has normalized the hatred of Jews and in some cases romanticized it. And we have to stand up against it, and we will, but I'm not going to condemn him for that.
May I follow up on the distribution of food, though? Because
certainly.
Let me just say that there is widespread criticism and actually self-criticism by the consulting group that was supporting the foundation, which is backed out of it, that the distribution system was not as professional as either the UN, or the World Food Program and other people who are used to working in this area, and that there should have been more distribution points where people would not have been told to line up and be targeted. Let me just finish
But these questions now, these are critiques of an environment that we've talked about regularly every day. Every time I'm up here, it is this critique of, I say 7 million meals have been distributed, but it would have been, but not for you. It should have been those guys over there or these people over here. Over the last 3 years with the UN or the World Food Program, no one has distributed 7 million meals to Gaza.
Many hundreds of thousands of people in Israel, as well as the Hamas, the families of the people being held by Hamas, are protesting this food decision. The former defense minister criticized these decisions. There is plenty of internal dispute over these policies.
Andrea, I understand. I understand. I don't think any of us are going to be protesting 7 million meals being distributed. When we think about what the story is, there in that region and in general with everything that happens, someone's not going to be happy, someone's going to think it could have been done a better way, and yet it wasn't being done. It wasn't being done. This managed to be done. It is continuing on. I want as many meals to be distributed as possible. They seem to be doing that, and I understand everyone has their opinion, but this is not a debate about who would have had the better idea. This is what's happening and the meals are being distributed. And I thought, after 3 months of being harangued in this room by many of you about, don't you care about the starving Gazans, 7 million meals, and now we're being harangued about it's not by the right people. We have to move on from that. Yes, sir.
I'd like to just follow up on your opening, if I could.
Certainly.
You said about the Boulder terror suspect that Secretary Rubio has said, all terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers here on a visa should know that under the Trump administration, we will find you, revoke your visas, and deport you. The terror suspect's family members are in ICE custody now. Have their visas also been revoked by state?
I will not speak to the action taken for these individuals, so I can't confirm or deny that. I would say now, of course, this is in ICE's realm and perhaps also in DHS, and you should ask them about the next steps that they're taking and what will happen to the family in this regard.
But the revocation of the visas is in State Department's realm.
Well, but as I said when I opened, I'm not going to address that, whether that's occurred or not.
Tammy, sorry, can I?
Oh, yes, Matt, please. Matt Lee.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask.
Don't be sorry. You're never sorry.
Well,
but that's all right.
You're right.
Neither am
I'm
I.
not. I want to ask one question about Gaza, but first,
yes.
Is there paper coming out on this Cuba, or the Latin America Cuban doctors?
Yes, there is. As a matter of fact.
Oh, okay. Because unless I missed it, I haven't seen it.
I think they should already be out. It should already be out.
Oh.
So you will have a statement from the Secretary regarding the so-called Cuban doctors forced labor framework. I would suspect we'll also see a tweet. Might want to keep an eye on the Secretary's accounts. But yes, you will have a more extensive statement.
But I have really poor service in here, so I can't always see it. I just gone to what Andrea was talking about. So it is still correct that the GHF, this foundation, there is no U.S. involvement, and that there's no U.S. personnel involved or working for it. That is correct, right?
I have said, I think we've all been saying that, in fact, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is an independent organization. It does not receive U.S. government funding.
Right.
Nevertheless, we are constantly looking, of course, for creative solutions to get aid into Gaza without...
Right, but there aren't any U.S. officials working for it or
Gaza,
with it.
It does not receive U.S. government funding.
Right, but there aren't any U.S. officials working for it.
It does not receive U.S. government funding. That's the last time I'll repeat that sentence.
Okay, so how do you know, then, that all these reports are wrong if you don't have people on the ground?
Well, it's amazing how there are
I'm not saying they're right.
I'd say that also it's... I don't think we need someone whom you know personally or is assigned to you to be in a region to understand what's happened on the ground. It's the State Department, it's the United States government, it's the ambassador in Israel, and I think that there's a point where there has to be recognition that we have a sense, and we know, more than a sense, that we know what's happening on the ground.
Oh.
All right, Nadia.
Tammy, I want to address the high number of civilian casualties in Gaza. On average, is 80 to 100 people, mainly women and children, are killed. Your predecessor defended Israel policy for years, but now that he's out of government, he said that basically he believes that Israel is engaged in some aspect of war crimes. Does this administration share this point of view, regardless of what Hamas did, and just completely separate of what's happening in Gaza now? Considering the incidents, but the high numbers of civilians being killed every single day, including children who've been burned alive.
I would caution that very often the media carries the reports that come from Hamas. And I would I think you know, to look at those numbers with some suspicion. On someone's opinion about what Israel is or is not doing, everyone has an opinion. Everyone has the right to express that opinion, but I'm not going to comment on what someone else thinks is going on elsewhere. Yes, pink jacket.
I actually have a question that was sent from a fellow journalist, and I promise I'll ask if I get a question. Rima with Al Arabi TV.
Okay, hi.
The question is this. Today, an article from the media line reported that the United States is considering imposing visa and trade sanctions on Chile due to the Chilean government's decision to hold weapon purchase from Israel. Additionally, the Chilean government confirmed that Mr. Rubio reached out last Friday to express his concern regarding the relationship between Chile and Israel. Can you confirm the details of the call and provide information on whether the U.S. is evaluating these sanctions?
Well, we have a tendency to not remark on anonymous comments of things that may or may not have happened. So I can have them take back questions about the situation with Chile, but we'll get that to you later.
And a
yes,
question
sir?
about...
If it's something that I can actually comment on,
Maybe.
not an
I hope.
anonymous comment
No.
presented by someone else to you.
Who is going to be after Morgan Ortagus, the envoy to Lebanon? And the reason I'm asking is because I'm going to be there next week. So I just
Right.
wanna-
I'm not going to speak on personnel here or decisions that will be made by our special envoy. Yes, sir.
Just on the aid provision to Gaza, I mean, you'd said that there was a sense that people were criticising this because it was the wrong people doing it. Isn't it more about the mechanism that's been used? And the UN and all the major aid agencies have warned that if this kind of system was used, which places hungry and desperate people in very close proximity to Israeli troops who have previously used lethal force for crowd control, that situation is extremely dangerous. And they'd also said, there are risks for a whole load of other reasons as well. But they were warning for weeks, and that's why they didn't want to get involved in this, because it breaches all of the decades of expertise on delivering aid neutrally in a war zone to get to civilians, and that being the priority, to get to the maximum number of civilians. I mean, do you heed any of that advice or warning now, given what's happened over the last 48 hours?
Again, this is not our project. It is something that I think everyone's been and will be optimistic about. I like the idea that 7 million meals have been distributed. So, and then there is criticism that comes in. I would suggest that because it's a war zone, there was never going to be a perfect dynamic, except there was a ceasefire. And we were also moving in food and aid during the ceasefire. And then Hamas decided that, no, that's not good enough anymore, and started up again. So our commitment isn't just because in good times or because it's easy or because it's safe. We've been working hard to try to have a framework and asking people for new ideas about how to get this done, because those known entities and known factors and known people have been unable to do anything. So when we can wax lyrically about the past and people have better ideas and we're afraid of this, this is, yes, moving into a war zone run by a terrorist group where you need the defense of people with guns because it's a war zone and they indiscriminately kill people and they're still holding hostages. But you want to get food in there, and we've got to do it. And so I think that there's a framework of, yes, either the well-known stalwart entities that warned that you don't need to be warned, it's a war zone. We know there's going to be some issues, but that should not do this. It's been done. It's happening. It is, yes, dynamics are dangerous, and there are 7 million meals that have been distributed. I can't stress enough that is the story, and that will always be the story. And in the meantime, hopefully things will be refined and people learn. Nobody wants this environment, and we wouldn't have it if Hamas actually behaved like human beings.
Can I just clarify?
Myra?
Can I just
Yes.
clarify on one? Just
Yes,
one
certainly.
thing you said earlier, which you said that Israeli troops wouldn't have to be there if Hamas surrendered. But my understanding is that's not the position, because we've had very senior ministers in the Israeli government say that the objective here now is to control and occupy the area, to clear it, and to basically to build.
Well,
Israeli
I'm sure. Yes, there's. I know. I see the newsletters and I see the magazines and the scholarly discussions about what Israel's really doing or not doing. All I know is that prior to this delivery of 7 million meals, the questions were, when are you going to get food into Gaza? It's happened. And now we can surmise and wonder and critique and point to others. But I think the story remains that this is the only way that has worked and that has been engaged with. And it's nice to sit in an air-conditioned office and critique those who are on the ground distributing meals. But that is going to remain the focus. Humaira, let's try again.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi.
I do have a question about this, but then
Of
I'm
course.
going to move on to Iran and Ukraine.
Of course.
Just to get this from you, in light of everything we've discussed here and in your answer to Matt, you have emphasized that U.S. does not fund this effort.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Well, actually, I was about to say we're going to move off the State Department briefing and take you here to a Senate joint hearing. Well, let's go back. You can still watch the Senate joint hearing at the top of your screen, but let's go back to the State Department briefing. It looked like that shot froze for a second, but we now have it back here. Let's take a listen in.
Administration has been very supportive of this effort. Are you going to keep supporting this effort, or is there?
We've been vocally supportive, like as one would hope. About the nature of the structure of getting food in, and so far, of course, because it's imperfect, because of the arena in which it's in, that 7 million meals have been distributed. I'm impressed with that number. I hope other people are as well.
Okay. On Iran, are you able to tell us the latest on the talks after there's been so much reporting about the U.S. proposal, which is effectively allowing Iran on a limited basis for low-level uranium enrichment for a TBD period of time? Is there going to be a new round of talks anytime soon?
Well, you did see the President Trump tweet, didn't you?
Yes, but I didn't think that would completely negate the reporting.
I appreciate that. I think that's the biggest guffaw I've had here. The thing that matters when it comes to American policy and what's happening is what President Trump thinks and says. This is the Trump administration. It is sometimes an unusual communication structure, as we've learned here in this very room. But the fact is, President Trump tweeted that there is going to be no uranium enrichment. Does the President of the United States, not just any president, but Donald Trump, does his opinion that he makes public trump news media reports? I think so.
No,
you know better than that.
No, as in the whole sticking point here is to try to come up with some sort of a formula that's going to be acceptable.
Well, that's a very different thing than what you just noted. So let me just make sure it's clear. The President has made clear, and is the final word, obviously, and has been literally the final word in this regard, there will be no uranium enrichment. Now, if you're seeing reports about what the deal is, obviously that's incorrect. The President leads this. The President guides this. It is his guiding hand. It is the American people are happy with that. They elected him for his expertise and his focus. So President Trump's, not quite sure where you would think where President Trump's statement would not be the final dynamic here, and that in fact maybe reports could be wrong.
That's not what I said.
All right.
So are you saying that there was no proposal verbally or written or in any way presented to the Iranians?
I'm not going to comment on how the negotiations, Humaira, I'm not going to comment on the process of negotiations. We've been as clear as we can with the various negotiations, the discussions that have been going on over a period of weeks, and there's been readouts put on those and some elements of some details, but you can't discuss the nature of what a negotiation is because there's many elements involved and many different intentions involved, and the end result we won't know until it's over. So I'm not going to say if there was a submission or what the details were. What I do know that is public and blunt is the President of the United States statement about what it won't be, and that is the one thing we know at this point. All right, yes, sir.
On Iran, any idea about the next round of talks, when and where it will happen?
No.
And the other question, Senator Schumer yesterday accused the president of folding on Iran and said that the administration is getting ready to sign a secretive side deal with Iran. Any comments on this?
No. What I can say, though, of course, is that the maximum pressure campaign on Iran remains in full force. All right? Yes, ma'am.
Just following up on Humaira's question on Iran, would you say that optimism that was expressed by the president last week is still there? He seemed very positive about prospects. Do you still see them moving forward, or are they kind of a standstill?
There is no one's happy when people are killed. This has been the driving force of his decisions since January 20th and before, is to save people's lives and to be a peacemaker and to get these horrible things to end. So, of course, all of us are affected by that. At the same time, 7 million meals.
Sorry, Iran, Tammy.
Oh, Iran.
Yeah.
All right, well, his optimism on that is true as well. I mean, you've got...
You still believe they're moving forward at pace?
His actions and his statements are based in the nature of the conversations that he has, that he knows are being had, and his understanding of why people are doing what they're doing and what we can do as a nation to mitigate that. And he has been very vocal on his optimism in that regard as well. I have not heard anything to counter that, but again, I'm not in those rooms, and I'm not going to read his mind. I do know that these people have been at the table because of the nature of the power of his influence and the power of the United States. He wouldn't be doing something that he didn't think he could accomplish, and I think that is informed in part by his optimism.
And then quickly on visas, are the student and exchange visas still on hold? And do you have an estimate of how much of a backlog this has now caused?
All right.
The appointments for
yes. There is going to be, I can tell you there'll be more on this but before the end of the week. The original cable indicated it was going to be a matter of days. And I think that this is a sense of making sure that embassies and consulates are prepared to make sure that all the steps that are needed are able to be taken, and just making sure that things were in order, that this is not a never-ending dynamic, and we are looking at, again, an update in a matter of days in that regard as well.
And any sense of the backlog that this has caused?
Well, no appointments were canceled. There were, people have been encouraged and continue to be encouraged there's 2 steps, right? You apply, but then you have to have an interview. And so inevitably, no appointments were, canceled or eliminated from availability. I think that when this returns, we're going to see that appointments are going to be able to be made. It's not like it's a time block that can't be returned, that days can't be returned. And I think that once this is done and it's back online, it'll go pretty quickly. Yes?
Thank you. Just to follow up on the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, you mentioned that the IDF is looking into investigating the incident that happened most recently out of several incidents of violence. You highlighted that they're succeeding in getting millions of meals distributed, and you said that in the meantime we're going to obviously be determining how that's working and how we can further improve this. And as my colleagues have pointed out, the U.S. government is very vocal about supporting this as a creative process and trying to improve a very dire situation on the ground.
Sure.
Do you have anything to say about how this process could be improved?
No. There are people more knowledgeable than me, obviously, who are on the ground, who do this for a living, who are experts. I have no comment. No one here is going to have a comment or advice on how things should move. It's just the opposite. I spent 25 years in media doing exactly what you're asking. And it's a different language, but I'm here to just at least certainly try to get the details to you without opining or making suggestions.
Yes, could I just follow up on one more?
Sure, one more.
Do you agree that the area of improvement would involve something to do with the security situation and reducing
I will not speculate or give advice or muse on any aspect of that issue or pretty much any other.
Can I have one?
All right, yes or no, we're going to move on here. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I will stay in Gaza, but in a different aspect. Lately, in the last couple of days, there was some developments in the negotiations toward reaching a ceasefire. There was a new U.S. proposal. Hamas wanted to enter some changes to it. It was not acceptable by the U.S. Yesterday, Hamas announced that it's willing to enter a non-direct negotiation with Israel to reach a framework that will lead to a ceasefire. Are you supportive of this?
Well, I'm here to tell you what we know at this point. I'm not going to discuss something that is either in the midst of something being discussed with a foreign country. It's not my position to do that. At the same time, of course, we've made it clear that Hamas has to stop acting recklessly. We certainly can note that. And as S.E. Witkoff had noted, Hamas's recent response to the existing offer was totally unacceptable and only takes us backward. So, these are the people on the ground who will make those kinds of decisions, but I'm not going to comment on something that is still speculative. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Hamid. I want to move to Ukraine, if I may. I want to get your reflection.
Yes, please. Let's do that.
The events of past couple of days and also next 2 days. I know that the Ukrainian delegation is in town. I understand they were in this building this morning. We are in the second week of the president's latest 2 weeks deadline, if you want. And the Ukrainians said that yesterday they met with the Russians, and whatever they put on the table, which was the last minute, they didn't have time to respond. Is it your concern that there's slow walk in the process, and what do you expect from the talks in the next 2 days?
Well, I would disagree with your characterization that it's the latest 2 weeks deadline, right? Is that what you meant? There is, again, a commitment to not have this go on for months or to have meetings about meetings. It's not going to go on for a year. The president and the secretary want an accomplishment and a deadline. They know what can be accomplished. And sometimes, remarkably, in negotiations, you have some progress. And then things move forward, right? Then you actually can make a difference, and you're somewhat flexible in being able to make it work. So I think that it is has to be taken within that framework. As far as the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, we did not have a delegation there. I think we are certainly reading a lot of things in the media, but as the president has said, and as the secretary has noted as well, this has now got to be between the parties. And there's some discussion of the exchange of wounded prisoners and very young prisoners, and we can read that in the news, but again, we do look at what people do, not what they say.
According to media reports, the Russian side, they are beefing up their demands. Not only they cover Ukraine, they also talk about Georgia, Moldova, and their NATO aspirations. Does the United States have any position on that?
Well, we've seen those reports. He's asking about Georgia and Moldova, the support of additional countries, et cetera. We've seen those reports. And we continue to support direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. We, of course, have said repeatedly there's no military solution to this conflict, and the President supports, though, any mechanism that leads to a just, durable, and lasting peace. Any mechanism, but yeah, we'll have to see where that plays out. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tammy. 2 questions for you. Number one, Career Ambassador David Hale met today with the Lebanese Prime Minister. Was Ambassador Hale there in his capacity, the State Department, or in a private capacity?
I'm going to have to take that back and get that back to you.
Second topic. Yes. The French presidential advisors spoke with their Israeli counterparts today, said they would not be moving forward with unilateral recognition of the Palestinian state at the upcoming UN two-state solution conference. I'm trying to get a sense of the American posture and policy toward this upcoming conference, because obviously the Trump administration is not a proponent of moving forward with a two-state solution at the moment. Is it to take a hammer to this conference? Is it to work within the contours and try to find like a bridging solution with everybody? I mean, what is the approach to this conference from the State Department?
Well, I would consider that a discussion of a diplomatic strategy, or certainly plans that one would have or not have when we're discussing something as serious as this. It's good news if what you indicate is correct, that the French have backed away from what their plans are. But this is Israel. Obviously, you can also check with Israel when it comes to their position in this regard. But I won't discuss from this podium what our plans would be at the UN or at any other conference. Yes, sir, at the end.
Hi.
Me? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ryan from Bloomberg. I'm new to the room.
Terrific.
Just back to Gaza. There's been a shift in tone in some European countries when it comes to Israel, notably in Germany, whose chancellor has said that the situation in Gaza could no longer be justified by a fight against Hamas terrorism. Some countries like UK and France are considering trade sanctions and restrictions on arms sales. Are you seeing a split with the U.S. when it comes to this, and do you have a message for your European allies?
No, I have no comment on that. All right. We'll talk to you in the blue jacket, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Election on South Korea. As an ally of South Korea, what does the United States view about this Korean presidential election? And do you think the president elected in this election will be able to improve U.S. and South Korea relations? Thank you.
Yeah, so there's an election. We are waiting for its certification, and we will certainly have a statement when that occurs. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Karen. Two questions. First, on Gaza and West Bank. Where does the Trump administration stand when it comes to the two-state solution? Is it still on their radar, on this administration radar, or it's not?
Well, what we are focused on, obviously, is a ceasefire so that this wholesale terrorist slaughter of innocent people can finally, for once in a generation, come to a complete and total stop. But I would like to, we've discussed the Gaza situation quite regularly here, so let's, is that my microphone or someone else's microphone that is I'm getting feedback on?
One more?
There is an audio problem, so let's make sure the mics are down unless someone is speaking.
One more, Tammy?
Gotcha. All right.
One more?
Well, if you're going to move on from Gaza,
Yeah,
there are
thank
a
you.
host of
Yeah.
other subjects, and I'm having to
I
go
will.
soon, and we've not touched on a number of
Syria.
things.
Just one more.
So
Sorry.
one more.
Yeah, thank you. How does the Trump administration assess the latest efforts from the interim government in Syria?
All right, so Syria, we, of course, our asks of the Syrian government have not changed. We are, of course, continuing to support. Ambassador Barak is there as our lead in that regard, working with making sure that that government has a chance to succeed. We've taken actions here, of course, to make sure that there are waivers when it comes to sanctions, allowing a number of other issues to be able to be implemented, including memorandums of understanding regarding electricity and the basic functional aspects of life, which of course is importance there. So I think that we're in a wait and see with an effort that we've made to make sure they have the greatest chance to succeed within a continuing expectation of making sure that every Syrian is involved in this process, and that terrorism is something, and ISIS in particular, is something that is continued to be defeated in that region. So it is so far, again, with Ambassador Barak, who's got a great Twitter account, I should say X. He's very prolific in his statements and very open and transparent. And you'll see there the fact that things are moving along. But of course, we watch with the, I think, correct amount of expectation and seriousness about what's possible. All right. So now, other than Gaza, more on Syria? All right.
Questions on Syria. And I want to know your comment or assessment about the recent negotiations between the Kurdish-led...
The Kurdish?
The Kurdish-led administration negotiation with the Syrian interim government. You know, the Kurds continue to emphasize the importance of preserving their autonomous administration in Rojava, northwest Syria.
Right.
Does the United States support this approach? And the second question, there have been reports suggesting that the U.S. has given its tacit approval to the Syrian interim government to retain custody of the foreign fighters and potentially integrate them into their defense structure. These claims have gained traction following the recent visit of the U.S. Special Envoy to Syria, to Damascus.
All right, so let me answer this because we're running out of time. The first question we've discussed, certainly even when the Kurds were here, and the nature of our awareness regarding the energy issues, et cetera. So I'm not going to be repeating that. If there's anything new, can we take it back and see if there's anything new or a new development regarding the Kurds in that regard? But and that's regarding, of course, Iraq. But I think regarding the military bases and the foreign fighters. So our asks of the Syrian government have not changed in that regard. During, I guess as Ambassador Barak noted in Damascus, we are clear about the challenges facing the Syrian government as they take concrete steps toward the President's request in building a secure and stable Syria. And the ambassador stressed that transparency is of utmost importance as the Syrian government develops a plan in the days ahead. I would leave it at that, in the fact that also referring you to the DoD when it comes to issues regarding bases, et cetera, but I think that it's remembering that our asks of the new Syrian government have not changed, and that we are watching their process and expecting transparency about the choices they make and how they make them. That's about as clear, as unclearly clear as I can be. All right, we'll leave it with you. What?
Apparently, a security alert went out yesterday from the U.S. mission to Mexico warning Americans to use caution when using dating apps in various locations.
I think that alert should probably be global. I don't know about.
Well, apparently, some people are getting kidnapped and held for ransom.
Well,
is there any additional information or warning you can provide?
I don't. We can check on the dating apps. These days, when we worry about kids online and everything that goes on, it's something that I'm not read into enough to even riff about. But it's if clearly if that is occurring, it's a serious dynamic. People should, in fact, be aware of that wherever they are when it comes to meeting strangers using the internet. All right, that's it. I'm glad we ended on that point. All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. I'm Vanessa Rufus, taking over in the Live Impact News studio. We'll be together for the next hour, and we want to start things off with some fun. So we've got, with Taste of Charlotte, Jessica Robards to preview this fun event coming up in just a few days. So it's a multi-day event, June 6th, 7th, and 8th. So we wanted to give folks an idea of what they can expect. This is happening in Uptown, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We take over the streets, or Tryon Street, for 5 blocks. We start at the heart of Center City, which is Trade and Tryon, and go all the way down to Brooklyn Village and line the streets with Charlotte local area restaurants. That is the local part, is supporting these restaurants in downtown Charlotte, so, or Uptown, right?
Yes, Uptown, going to be filled with different places for folks to check out. From what we've covered the event in the past, and from what we've seen, usually it's either, I don't want to say food trucks, but there's some sort of like vendor type setup where people can go from tent to tent, if you will, and sample. You actually brought some props for us. This is a token situation. Is that what you have? Yeah. So explain how folks can actually partake in the food.
Yeah. So it's a free, non-ticketed event. So it's free to the community. We line it up with the end of school and kick off summer, and it's a lot of fun for everybody. But it is a restaurant festival. We don't have a lot of food trucks out there, which is part of the confusion. Like, I'm glad I'm kind of clearing this up, unless like a restaurant has like a mobile unit that they're out there. But yeah, they come out, and the restaurants do set up in tents, and they get to feature 3 menu items that they want to share to the public, and you buy these tasting coins, and so you can buy as much or as little as you want and go around and taste all these different items that the restaurants produce. And if you like what you taste at Taste of Charlotte, you should be going back to their restaurant for the full menu and the full entree. So that's really the gist of it, and people will go around. Each of the menu items will range anywhere from 1 to 4 coins, so they're small tastings, and you can taste multiple restaurants, multiple flavors. The flavors are, we're trying to represent, the like Italian, we've got Caribbean, we've got Ruth's Chris and STK and the steaks, we've got Latin, pizza, burgers, just every Charlotte flavor that you could think of that I can even fit on Tryon Street. I wish I could fit everybody. We try and make sure everybody's represented so you can have a good taste out there.
Let me get a look at those tokens.
Yeah,
Here, pass one over. I want to see.
Keep that coin cup.
All right, so folks, here they are. And yeah, so we can see it actually says Taste of Charlotte. And is this a good representation of how many coins you get?
Yep, so in one cup, you get 14 coins, and each coin, the more coins you buy on site and on the digital app for digital coins, which I'll go over in a minute, that changes the cost a little bit if you buy more in bulk.
Okay.
But yeah, you just use these coins and you go around and taste all the different items that have a big, here's another one with like Food Lion Taste of Charlotte. Oh, reaching for you. Food Lion is our big supporter of our event, and we're so thankful that they help put this on, which makes it free to the community. And, I'm just kind of pulling up the menu here. We've got a brochure that'll be out at every coin booth, and you can just kind of pick it up and figure out what you like to eat, circle it, go around and make sure you're hitting all those booth items that you want. And if you can't eat everything in one day, you can certainly come back on Saturday and Sunday to try things as well.
Yeah, it's a 3-day event. You mentioned all of the different types of restaurants that are represented. Is there a certain radius that these restaurants come from? Are they all strictly in Charlotte, or does it kind of branch out Mecklenburg County in general, or does it go beyond?
Yeah, so it's local to Charlotte. We've had restaurants from the greater Charlotte area as well. We like to include Rock Hill, Gastonia, Monroe, Indian Trail, but mostly for what we have room for, the people that have applied and gotten in are, in that center city or in the greater Charlotte areas. But everybody's local. These are not restaurants from, Charleston or Raleigh or anything like that. That's what the local part is.
Yeah, and we wanted to point out for our viewers here who are watching on Live Impact News that our producer Jeb has pulled up the website for Taste of Charlotte, and that particular site where it talks about all of the restaurants. And actually, Jessica, you can look over there, and you can see some of what our viewers are able to see right now. So you have an idea of all of the different places. And I'm familiar with some of these as being right there in Charlotte and beyond. But like you mentioned, right, just for our area.
Yeah. A lot of the flavors, we've got a wing place at Voodoo. I can see you scrolling through the Smoke Pit, which is award-winning barbecue here in North Carolina out of Concord. So yeah, we do reach up in there as well. We've got Mr. Three's Crab Pot. We've got STK for the steak. Enrico's Italian. I know I'm just kind of going through when you scroll and what I'm seeing here. The lobster mac and cheese from Cuzzo's Cuisine. They come back every year. Mm-hmm. Just really every category that we could try and represent in Charlotte that has a Charlotte restaurant, we're trying to do so, so everybody gets a flavor that they like.
Yeah, I have a family visiting town actually during this period of time, so I was thinking about bringing them, and I'm just kind of curious, what sort of atmosphere is this like? It sounds like the street is closed because you have folks who are going to be walking around on Tryon. Do you have live music, or are there other events or just other things that people need to know about as far as attractions when they show up to the area?
Yeah, great question. We have packed this festival. Every block has a different theme. There's live entertainment. There's the WCNC main stage where it's music, and we have we're not Love and Life or anything, so we're not bringing like major musical acts, but that's local musicians are there to perform, as well as heavily scheduled with community groups. The community groups that are dance troupes, cheerleaders, drumming performances, yoga classes, martial arts, like every 5 minutes there's pretty much something going on, and so we're real excited about that one. That's at Levine and Tryon, of course, and then we have 2 other area stages. One is in the Tavern, which is our beer area, craft brewery, which we're featuring Victory Brewing lineup there, where you can taste and have those types of items there. But that stage has dueling pianos, so it's got this like bar feel. People raise their glasses, they sing along. cheers, that type of thing. But then when you do the counterpart in the wine cellar, you take, it's more relaxed. You've got your chill wine tasting and wine drinking there. We have singer-songwriters and jazz and that type of feel, so you can find an atmosphere on a different block. And then we've got the cocktail corner, which is a little bit new. It's got DJ music, a Barbados island feel. It's on the Beckler Plaza to hang out there and just have like a great time. And so this new cocktail corner is actually new, that we get to feature kind of off the beaten path in the Beckler Plaza, but it's just like right there off of Tryon Street. Because if you're telling friends and family, this place does get busy. The corridor is busy, the other side on all the sidewalks, but I just love the fact that people are kind of out and about, hanging out with each other. Again, being free to the public, it's just a lot of fun for everybody to get together. I love it.
Yeah. So explain that, free to the public, but you talked about different tiers of coin purchases that you could do. So if you could you walk through maybe some of the pricing then?
Yeah.
For folks
So
to know?
It's $20 for a cup of coins, and then as many cups as you want. Keeps going. That's what you get on site when you go to a coin booth. A coin booth is located on every block. So just come on site at any block and get started, grab a menu and see where you're at. The different blocks are like 100s through 500s, so you'll find where you want to go and kind of figure out where you are. But if you want to avoid the lines, you would get on the tasteofcharlotte.com, go to the app, or and just download from the App Store, the Apple App Store and Google Play, Taste of Charlotte Guest. Create your account, and I'd say do it now because there is an activation process where you just check your email and activate, and then buy your coins. And so 35 coins is, I think, $50, and then it goes from there. That'd probably be, and you can get more or less. It's really up to you, however much you want to do. And that's going to cover all your food and beverage items, including not just the restaurants, but all the beer that is there, all the wine, all the cocktails. But if you don't, if you want to just shop and all of our local artisans and that type of thing that people are selling, you can just, each one of those purchases just goes directly to, cash credit for supporting that local artist that's on site as well.
Yeah. So why Taste of Charlotte? Why should folks come and taste Charlotte?
I mean, this is the premier event where you can taste all these different restaurants in one spot, and then just get reminded of like who's been here, who's new, who do you want to try over the summer, for the rest of the year, that type of thing. They're giving you a taste, and then they're also giving out a lot of promo items too. So, restaurants may be giving away like 20% off this, free dessert, free app. Like, you don't know until you get there and try their items and find out what they're giving away, so you can go visit them again for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have some great gems of restaurants here in our area, so it's cool, to your point, that folks can come to one spot and taste them all if they want.
That's right. One thing I was going to bring up about the digital part is kind of back to the coins, is downloading the app. I can help you demo it really quick. And I've got a little phone here, and we've got of course you can buy coins, and then you just pay the vendor that way. Yeah. And then you don't have to stand in the coin line. But we've developed a little system where you can share coins with friends digitally. And so I'll give you this phone right here. Oh. Yeah, you got one coin left. Poor thing.
Here we go. Can y'all see it?
I don't know if it shows up. So
it shows up.
All right. There's me. I've got a lot of coins.
Well,
I know,
Miss Moneybags.
Seriously. And then I would like to give you some coins if you don't mind.
Okay.
So go to the share coin little menu item.
Okay. And it says give coins and receive coins.
Yeah, so you're going to receive coins, and I'm going to give you coins.
Amazing. Oh, okay, and it's got a QR code.
Yep, so we'll just tap.
Oh man.
We're just going to tap and give some coins. Do we do this on camera? Or?
Okay, we got an overhead shot. Oh, it did it.
I gave you some coins. And so now you have the ability, you know, to receive those coins.
21
And
coins now.
Now I'm left with 104. Sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you can do that with family and friends. Sometimes people have one coin left or they're leaving and they just want to tap their friends. Sometimes families share this as well, where they've got some kids with phones and they maybe will go off and get their own meals, and you can text mom or dad and say, I'm out of coins, and you can, you know, purchase more and put them on there as well as the tapping function.
And of course, as one would expect, on the app, I see you can access the map, so you can pull that up so you know where everyone is.
Yeah.
Yeah, very easy and convenient. Anything you would like to leave our viewers with before we wrap things up, Jessica?
Oh, man. I mean, that's one of our biggest things is we've been developing this app. When we were unable to do Taste of Charlotte in 2020, it was something we really sort of put our heads together to produce and do. But yeah, there's a know before you go tab on Taste of Charlotte. It's got all the parking, coin, app, visitor info, tasteofcharlotte.com, and just a lot of the kids' activities maybe I forgot to talk about was the fact that there's a whole section with Levine Avenue that has 15 different rides. You get a wristband to play all day for kids, so bring the family. You can get them occupied while you're tasting some food. And then we've lined like at least one activity per block so you can kind of move down the line and keep your kids, you know, entertained throughout the event, as well as the adults being entertained as well. And we've got a lot of tours this year, which is like fantastic. We're so excited about the interactive, we've got Instax Fujifilm. I think they're going to do like those Polaroids are back in style and that type of thing. Go RVing is there and has interactive camper stuff for everybody kind of getting on the road this summer for camping. Again, the stages that are there, and the Truist neighborhood. So, you know, one of those things is like we've got 2 area blocks where Truist has taken over, and they're purple on the map, so you can find them. And it includes the marketplace, which has our local area artisans, so you want to support them. People like David French, who, you know, paints those wonderful Charlotte historical buildings and that type of thing, along with, you know, your soaps and candles and jewelry and all of that. And then we've got the wine cellar in the Truist neighborhood. And then, of course, last but not least is the Food Lion front porch. Like, they've got this amazing trailer that folds out into a front porch. You can actually sit on a porch and have lemonade and have rocking chairs and just play games, and just a lot of those like experiences that you can really get immersed into at Taste of Charlotte, where you're at least, you know, eating and drinking and having all this fun, but you get to like experience a lot of different things on site. So we've built it all year, and we hope the city of Charlotte and the community enjoys it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really great event. We'll remind folks once again, this is June 6th, 7th, and 8th, so really coming up in less than 3 days at this point.
Yeah.
I'm looking, by the way, at your timer, your countdown clock on your website, so that's how I know. 2 days, 15 hours, 40 minutes until Taste of Charlotte. You can find more on tasteofcharlotte.com. Jessica Robards, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Impact News. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you so much.
All right. There you have it, folks. Okay. You can learn more, of course, at tasteofcharlotte.com. We'll remind you once again. With that, we want to turn the page to a live feed that just popped in here on Live Impact News. So we've got Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and the Subcommittee on Federal Courts, Oversight Action and Federal Rights. So this is a joint hearing that's going on. It's called the Supposedly Least Dangerous Branch, District Judges v. Trump. So we're hearing some testimony right now, including, it looks like right now, a professor I believe he's a professor of law and Centennial Chair of the Constitutional Law at South Texas College Law. Let's listen in live.
Recently explained that Roberts expressed a profoundly wrong sentiment. Or more local to me, Judge Ho in Houston aptly observed, it is not the role of the judiciary to check the excesses of the other branches any more than it's the judiciary's role to check the excesses of any other American citizen. So the question is, who will check the excesses of the executive? At least with regard to the lower courts, you all, Congress. The Constitution refers to the federal district courts as inferior courts. Yet far too many lower court judges seem to have a superiority complex. We're witnessing a never-ending onslaught of universal injunctions that make it nearly impossible for the executive branch to function. So what can be done? We can't look to the courts to check themselves. The long history of judicial supremacy teaches that judges of all stripes, conservative and progressive, seek to defend and entrench their own institution. The answer to any sustainable reform must come from the legislature. To paraphrase Madison in Federalist 51, legislative ambition must counteract judicial ambition. Yet regrettably, most debates about judicial reform get bogged down in politics. When there's a Republican president, Democrats love the universal injunction. When there's a Democratic president, Republicans love the universal injunction. It's predictable. Proposals that help only one side of the aisle have a slim chance of enactment. The federal courts cannot be reformed through unilateral disarmament. Any reform must be bilateral. I published an article called Bilateral Judicial Reform in the Texas A&M Journal of Law and Civil Governance. This was in 2024, before the election. And I got 10 ideas to fix the courts that might appeal to people on both sides of this aisle. I will talk about 3 of them in my limited time today. Number 1, cases seeking a temporary restraining order can be decided by a single judge, but can only give relief to the named parties and are limited to 7 days. No longer can a single judge issue a universal TRO that lasts for nearly a month without any appellate review. Second, cases seeking preliminary injunction or equivalent relief against the federal government and state governments are referred to the en banc court, which appoints a randomly drawn 3-judge panel with 2 circuit judges and 1 district court judge. There is some value in having a multi-member body consider an issue rather than a lone district court judge deciding difficult questions. And rather than having 2 district and 1 circuit, I prefer 2 circuit, 1 district, because these cases tend to focus more on law than on facts. The third proposal focuses on the appellate process. Chief Justice Roberts recently stated that the appropriate response to disagreement with the judge is the normal, he said, the normal appellate review process. As things stand now, the Supreme Court has a completely unpredictable and indeed arbitrary approach to emergency application. I think we maybe all agree upon that. Congress can make the appellate review process of the Supreme Court normal again. Under my proposal, injunctions of statutes against the federal government and state governments are automatically stayed. The stay is automatic. It's not discretionary. And if a 3-judge panel submits what we call a certificate of division, that is, 2 judges go one way, the judges go the other way, the case is appealed to the Supreme Court's mandatory jurisdiction. They can't deny cert. And oral argument is decided on an emergency docket timeline, which Congress would then set. I think these 3 measures would have bipartisan appeal, at least I hope they do, and will go a long way to addressing the never-ending fights between the President and the judiciary. Thank you so much, and I welcome all of your questions.
Thank you. Professor Shaw.
Good afternoon, chairs, ranking members, distinguished members of the subcommittees. Thank you for the invitation to testify today. I understand that the purpose of today's hearing is to discuss recent judicial rulings against the Trump administration and to situate those rulings in historical and institutional context. There is no question that the Trump administration has been on a losing streak in federal court. According to the most recent data compiled by Professor Steve Vladeck, district courts have ruled against the administration in 97 cases to date. That is a large number, but it is a number that is best understood in context. First, it has to be viewed in the context of the unprecedented volume of executive action we have seen from this administration. As of May 24th, the second Trump administration had issued 157 executive orders. By comparison, the Biden administration issued 162, nearly the same number, over the course of 4 years. The first Trump administration issued 220 over 4 years. It is not surprising that this much more executive action than previous administrations has drawn more challenges. The second thing to understand is that these rulings have come from judges who sit in district courts across the country and who were appointed by presidents of both parties. 25 district courts in 10 circuits and 73 judges appointed by 7 presidents have ruled against this administration. That leads me to my third point. These are not about policy disagreements. The reason there has been such wide and cross-ideological consensus over the impermissibility of the administration's actions is because the actions have been plainly unlawful, and that has been clear to jurists of all stripes. Again and again, the administration has acted in violation of both the constitutionally required process for lawmaking, one that gives Congress primacy, and the rights the Constitution commands government to respect. To be sure, some of these preliminary rulings against the government will be, and some have been, reversed or stayed on appeal. But it is telling that there are so many lower court losses that the administration has not even bothered to challenge. That is true in the birthright citizenship case currently pending in the Supreme Court, in which the lower courts have unanimously ruled against the administration. But the administration has not challenged those rulings on the merits. Instead, it has asked the court to use the case as an opportunity to restrict lower courts' ability to provide nationwide relief, and to do that in a context in which the administration is not even defending the lawfulness of its own executive order. Rather than focus on the appellate process or on remedying the legal defects that have been revealed by litigation, this administration and many supporters have suggested that the problem is district judges. The separation of powers is dynamic, it is not static, and there is definitely room for debate about the proper scope of both presidential and judicial power. At different moments in our history, different institutions and actors have sought to significantly increase their authority, sometimes in ways that could not be squared with the basic design of a constitution committed to limits on any single entity's power. At this moment, the entity engaging in overreach is the executive branch. This administration has been marked by a breathtaking degree of presidential unilateralism that is flatly inconsistent with statutes, the Constitution, and over 2 centuries of practice. For that reason, it would be profoundly misguided to seek now to curtail courts' authority by eliminating or seriously limiting their ability to issue nationwide injunctions. It is true that the use of such injunctions has increased in recent decades, and it is true that injunctions can be abused. But at this moment, courts are the only branch of government doing meaningful work to check the executive, protecting basic constitutional values, congressional prerogatives, and our liberty, which the separation of powers is designed to safeguard. If Congress does wish to wade into defending the separation of powers, I would suggest a couple of options. First, it could give the president some of the authorities he has tried to assert. If Congress agrees that the federal government should not protect Americans from abusive financial products and services, it can pass legislation doing away with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. If it wants to give DOJ access to Americans' sensitive personal information, it can repeal or amend the Privacy Act. If it wants the president to be able to impose sweeping tariffs based on his determinations of trade deficits, it can grant that statutory authority. As far as I know, it hasn't done any of that. Second, it could turn its attention to judicial security. Threats to the physical safety of federal judges have spiked in the last 4 months, and so have threats to judicial independence. There's a pending proposal that would move the U.S. Marshal Service from the executive branch to the judiciary in order to ensure that marshals are able to focus effectively on protecting federal judges and executing federal court orders.
All right, folks, live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We've been listening in live to this joint hearing of subcommittees. Essentially, the crux of the discussion here and the testimony we've been seeing rising from some of the complaints we've heard from the Trump administration about the power of district judges. And according to the Trump administration's opinion, we've heard from various officials there, they feel that district judges are overstepping bounds and trying to curb some of the measures the administration is trying to take. So we've been hearing constitutional experts speaking on that. We might dip back in that in just a few minutes. But quickly here, since on Live Impact News, we always try to keep you up to date with the very latest information as soon as we're getting it, we wanted to give you an update on a story that we shared with you around this time yesterday. And this regards a pretty important and big case that's ongoing in our area, and that is the Shanquella Robinson case. And so we shared with you yesterday that we had knowledge that this case had somehow been dismissed, the civil lawsuit that her mother had filed against various agencies, and also some of the travel mates who were with Shanquella when she died on that trip to Cabo, Mexico in 2022. That information we learned that is not the case. This civil lawsuit, from what we understand now at this very moment, is still active. And we got that information, that update from the attorney in this case. So we just wanted to make sure that you were staying up to date with the very latest, and be assured that we'll always try to give you the very latest information. We've got a team working on this ongoing story, including one of our reporters, Jessie, who's been with us since pretty much the beginning. So she's been keeping us abreast of the very latest with this. So once again, Shanquella Robinson's civil lawsuit that's been filed by her mother, that is still active. All right, with that, we want to turn to a new interview. We've got our Walker Lawson joining us in the Live Impact News studio once again. Walker is joining us to talk about his story of the day, which is really interesting, and it's this River District update. And it sounds like you're getting some new renderings, a new idea of some of the development in this area. And for folks who don't know where the River District is, give us an idea once again.
8-minute walk to the airport. Super close.
Pretty close. West Charlotte.
Yeah, West Charlotte. Talked to the Southwest. Yeah, we talked to the developer today that's overseeing part of this project. His name is Rainer Ficken. He's the senior managing director, but he met us out on the site. We started covering this back in 2016 when renderings first came to light, when the idea was proposed. Last year, we know that shovels went into the ground back in 2023, actually. And this is really a project unlike anything I've ever seen. I've been obviously covering development here for about 3 months, but I'm born and raised in Charlotte, so I've seen it all come. And this is really something similar almost to Ballantyne. The Bowl is such a large project that we've covered, and this is, in a sense, the same thing. It is a massive project that's going to bring, I mean, I can list a ton of things. It's going to have about 8 million square foot of commercial space. Looking at 500,000 square foot of retail, you have 2,000 units of multifamily residential space, another 2,000 homes. There's going to be assisted living, a hotel, obviously, which will be big for people using the airport. And they said for them, this is really building a community where you don't have to leave. There's a bunch of sustainability options. They want people to bike there, ride around. They're going to have 14 plus miles of mountain biking trails. There's 30 plus miles of walking trails. You could list it all. There's a ton of things that you can do out there. So it's really interesting. And one of the really interesting elements about it today that we learned about is this new rendering that they provided us is actually going to be a farm that's going to be on the site. They will be growing lettuce, they'll be growing different vegetables and then putting it out in this market that they'll be selling out to the community. So very sustainable, and it's really an interesting project and development.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I moved here in 2020 and did some research on the River District because, you know, I just wanted to know about all of the different communities around Charlotte. And I remember seeing that there was, maybe at the time, I think it was a decade-long plan for development. So seemingly this is within that window of a decade. But it's a really alluring area in the sense you kind of talked about the trails, but I mean, it's right by the river, as the name kind of would lead you to believe, but there's a lot of bodies of water. It's still relatively untouched as far as development. So for folks who probably want, you know, less of a, you know, a city feel, I feel like it's still like that to this day.
Yeah, I joked in my script that it's kind of a city within a city. You're looking at this large development where they're thinking people won't have to leave or go anywhere else. It's kind of a bigger version of Birkdale and probably similar in size with the Ballantyne Bowl that you're looking at. So it's really interesting to see something like this. The airport, of course, being a hub for people to travel. They said they've had a lot of interest from pilots already looking at homes out there. And again, this is a project, though, that's going to take a lot of time. They said it's going to take probably 8 to 10 years to have everything almost fully built out. Possibly up to 12, because there's just a lot of work that has to go into it. Obviously, we knew about it back in 2016. They ran into some utility issues, trying to get utilities out there, trying to turn this large land into a space. So we're finally starting to see those apartment buildings going up and starting to see fruition on this project. And of course, you see Charlotte growing in so many different areas, and this is a unique take on growth with this River District program.
Yeah, I mean, interesting to see, you know, some of the concepts that kind of come up lately have been like the multi-use type of places where, I mean, yeah, I guess to your point, city within a city where everything is in that one spot. I mean, there's something to be said to, you know, for being able to get to whatever business you like to patronize, you know, pretty quickly, even walking there if you want to.
Yeah, it was interesting too with sustainability, because when we went out there, they have sidewalks that are already paved, and there's this black line that's in between the sidewalks, and that black line is literally just to symbolize bikes go on one side, pedestrians go on the other, because they really want this to be a space where people are moving around. And they've already been designated what they call a One Planet Living Leader designation, and it's really their efforts of just preserving this natural space. They have 500 plus acres of open space and forest. As you mentioned, it's on the river. They are looking at having this working farm inside of the property. So while it's kind of meeting all those needs where we hear people complain or that get frustrated about tearing all of these trees down, and you're building, but not trying to keep some of that rural feel. And I feel like that is their element and way of doing it. And he spoke with us about how Europe sometimes is better at doing things like this, and they're kind of taking that vision and bringing it here and hoping that other developers will also follow suit in the future to try to make it more sustainable for people in the area.
I know your piece is coming up at 5, specifically in our 5:30 half hour, from what I could tell. So we'll see the renderings. Who will we hear from? Have you gotten officials? Did you go to the neighborhood?
Yeah, so we specifically went out and spoke with the team that's behind the project to really get a feel for it, because we know that this has been something that's in the works for a while. And people had mentioned it to me in passing in conversation, hey, what's going on with this plan? Where is it? And so the story really focuses strictly on being out there, hearing from them, because there's so much information to take away from it. There's all these different elements. You know, there's mention in their highlights they have on here with new CMS schools and elementary and middle school site with internal connections to the homes. They're looking to bring a grocery store out there. It's close to the airport, but they have made it strategic to where the tarmacs, the planes are not flying over the home, so we never heard any noise. So there's just a lot to take away from the story. So you're here specifically from the group behind this project, because it's pretty quiet out there residential wise. There's really not much else out there. So this is a kind of a one of its kind program. So
Very interesting. So we'll remind folks once again, 5:30 half hour.
Yes, 5:30.
We always advise folks to keep it here on WCNC Plus, because we say this time and time again, but you know, we get you kind of a little bit of a teaser here. If you keep it on throughout the evening, eventually, yes, you will see Walker's update. You'll see any breaking news, any of that. I mean, we're constantly updating things here, so you never know. Who knows? Maybe Walker gets a breaking scoop and comes back in 15 minutes. But anyways, we always appreciate you coming on the show here.
Thank you. I love popping by here. It's always fun.
And keep us updated on all the development.
Will do. More development always, everywhere you turn.
I know. So much to talk about. Okay, so folks, we are, as kind of teased here, going to jump back with the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee. So this is the Constitution Subcommittee and the Subcommittee on Federal Courts, Oversight, Agency Action, and Federal Rights. So this is a joint hearing, and this is all stemming from the tension between the Trump administration and district judges' opinions, rulings, and we're hearing from some witnesses here testifying. Looks like we still have this professor speaking, who is a constitutional law expert. Let's listen in.
When you talk to each other, you find perhaps the closer truth. A single judge acting by himself or herself can often be like a god. There's no limitation on what they can do. But the benefit is, if you have 2 circuit and 1 district, you're basically bypassing this next layer of review. Have the initial panel, 3 judges, and have managed review by the Supreme Court. To cut out this race to the Court of Appeals, this race to the Supreme Court, let's compress the process and get through so quickly enough so these issues of national significance are resolved fairly.
And by the way, if the characterization of these nationwide injunctions by my Democrat colleagues was accurate, if this was simply a result of, in their view, Trump's repeated lawless activities, one would assume a 3-judge panel would find the same ruling on the merits as a particular lone district judge. Is that correct?
In theory, but if drawn randomly, I think it's less likely. Random draws of 3-judge panels would be a very good change to see how things would work out.
Well, and much like Sherlock Holmes and the lesson he derived from the dog that did not bark, in this case, when we hear our Democrat colleagues talking about this is simply enforcing the law, the dog that isn't barking is, why do they keep going to the same handful of radical judges in bright blue districts? And why will every Democrat on this panel oppose any effort to require a 3-judge panel for a nationwide injunction? And the answer is they know fully well that a fair panel would reject the vast majority of these claims. And at the end of the day, I think too many Democrat members of this body want to frustrate the will of the voters who reelected President Trump and elected a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and they're perfectly happy for lone judges to impose their own policy preferences rather than respect the democratic will of the voters. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you. strikes me that what we have here is a team that has taken the field and engaged in unprecedented numbers of fouls and unprecedentedly flagrant fouls. And when the refs blow the whistle on the unprecedented number of fouls, the partisans of the team committing the fouls call out the referees for the unprecedented number of whistles that they blow. To try to level set this, let me ask if you can do a yes or no answer. Let's try to go right down the panel, yes or no. Is it appropriate to call judges USA-hating monsters who want our country to go to hell?
No.
No?
No, Senator.
In general, no, Senator.
And is it appropriate to call judges lunatics who do not care even a little bit and could very well lead to the destruction of our country?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
And is it appropriate to post pictures of judges' children with the intent to incite harassment and threats?
No.
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 Okay, good. We're off to a level set. I'll take that. Professor Alessia, when you were installed in your chair, the announcement was that the chair was made possible through the generosity of Leonard Leo, trustee of both the Marble Freedom Trust and Catholic University. Is that accurate? Is that who funded your chair?
My understanding is that Leonard Leo, through the Marble Freedom Trust, directed funds that funded the chair. I think that's accurate.
And with respect to your chair, Mr. Blackman, $1 million was given to fund it through an anonymizing organization called Donors Trust, which has been called the ATM of the far right. Do you know who was behind that Donors Trust laundered donation?
I appreciate the question, Senator. I would direct all these to my college to answer.
I'm sorry, first of all, your mic's not on.
No, I appreciate the question, Senator. I direct all these questions about this to my college. Thank you.
My question is actually to you, and it's whether you know. Do you know who was behind that donation?
I appreciate the question. Anonymous gifts are as they are, and I appreciate all those questions directed to my college.
Your college can't answer what you know. This is a question to you about what you know. This is a Josh Blackman question. Do you know who funded your chair?
I've answered the question.
Yes or no?
Thank you, Senator.
You can't say this. Do you realize that if you were an expert witness in a judicial proceeding, I'd be entitled to know who was funding you because it goes to bias and conflict, correct? That's basic sort of hornbook trial practice, right?
Fair enough, Senator.
I'm right about that. You'll agree.
We were invited to testify about nationwide injunction and the like. There's nothing I was prepared to testify about, so that's my answer for today.
Okay. Well, at least we know who funded Professor Alessia, and you won't even answer what you know. Let me turn to Professor Shaw. Let's just say that this activity today is designed to whip up more animus against courts, and that it adds to the atmosphere of threats that the court is now experiencing. I think we're up to, is it 162 threats to judges, which is pretty impressive. And a lot of this has the appearance, at least to me, of looking like it was orchestrated, looking like it was instigated, looking like there are folks behind it. So presumably, the Marshal Service should be not just protecting the judges and their family members, but also investigating the sources of the threats. Can you tell us what some warning signs would be that the Marshal Service has been directed, perhaps by the Attorney General or perhaps by some other senior official in the Department of Justice, to not do proper investigations, and particularly not look into orchestration or any effort to gin up these threats?
Senator, I have no information. strikes me that a non-response to your queries or queries from other members of Congress to the Marshal Service or to the Department of Justice are concerning. There should be an active dialogue between the branches about something as serious as the security of the third branch. And I guess I would just echo what Senator Booker was saying earlier. I mean, there have been two relatively recent periods when bipartisan legislation was passed to improve judicial security after the tragic murder of Judge Solis's son and also after the attempted attack on Justice Kavanaugh. Judicial security measures on a bipartisan basis quickly passed Congress, and I would hope that this is a moment in which broad agreement could be reached that it's necessary to do something similar.
And if it appeared that those were part of a larger plan or conspiracy, it would be appropriate for law enforcement to look into the question of whether there was a larger plan or conspiracy, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would note that Senator Whitehouse asked two of the three witnesses about private donations given to their respective law schools, but somehow omitted Professor Shaw. And I guess I would ask Professor Shaw, are you aware of what's been publicly reported in disclosures that your employer, the University of Pennsylvania, from 2013 to 2019 received from Communist China $67,618,610. Have you seen those public reports?
I'm sorry, Senator, I have not.
Well, they are publicly reported, and $67 million from Communist China. If we're going to just clarify the record, let's clarify the record across the board.
If I may, I actually don't hold an endowed chair, so I don't have an endowed chair personally, so I don't think I was being singled out for any reason, but that I don't have one. I do work for Penn, yes. Yep.
Chairman Schmidt.
Thank you. I suppose to further the analogy that Senator Whitehouse gave of reffing a game, I don't think anybody has a problem on this side of the aisle with a ref calling balls and strikes or calling a foul. The problem is, what if the ref's daughter hired the coach? What if the ref has money on the game? What if people start to question the legitimacy of the ref in the game? We all know what happens. People don't watch it anymore. Vegas takes the game off the board. So it gets to sort of this question of, as I referenced in my opening statement with Hamilton, the reason why it's supposed to be the least dangerous branch is it relies on the other two branches for enforcement. And the courts, the Article 3 branch, should be very well aware that if they lose legitimacy, they're cooked. And that's why we're having the hearing. Because people are questioning, how does Judge Boasberg, and I actually ask you, Professor Blackman, pose this as a question. How in the world does Judge Boasberg get a case when he's not the emergency assignment judge, he's on vacation in the middle of the night? How can that happen?
I don't know, and perhaps even more significant, if you read the transcript of the case, he basically told the plaintiffs to change their case. They brought it one way, said, no, here, plead it this way. Okay, good.
Folks, we're going to take a quick pivot here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, turn away from this joint subcommittee meeting in the Senate to some live images coming to us from New Orleans. And this is actually a special city council meeting just to address the issues with that recent prison escape. And we heard a lot from officials in the days following this escape, where you remember the inmates, they were able to essentially make it out through a wall, climb a fence, and run across the highway. There were some concerns brought up about funding and lack of upkeep with some of the infrastructure in the facility. So also alerting the neighborhood about this escape. Let's listen in to what city council members are talking about right now.
What I'm saying is use Mr. Wagaspack and the Sheriff's Association as a resource to see what are best practices for sheriffs. I am not, to be clear, because I think you're feeling this way, I'm not saying you created 44 accounts. You're managing 44 accounts. What I'm saying is let's all take this collectively as an opportunity to streamline things to make it easier for yourself and the city. That's what I'm saying.
And that may not be possible, council member. We don't know we know the history behind those accounts, and some of those accounts we have to keep the way we have to keep them. I'm not saying we have to keep all 44, but some of those accounts you have to keep them the way that they're set up. They're set up for that specific purpose.
But I'll just say this, we're going to look at that. We'll look at that. We have no issues looking with that, but you cannot fix everything that was wrong in just 3 years. That's just not possible. Especially when the population was rising, all these things were going on. You have to deal with what you've got right in front of you. And we'll get to all of these things.
We're going to work with the sheriff on this, so we're going to we're going to drill down on these accounts, their purpose, their legal requirements, whether they have to be separated from general fund or not. We can do that.
Thank you for answering the question that I was actually asking. Okay. Mr. King, Mr. Thomas. King, you're first.
Thank you. So, Sheriff, I want to take a step back and just look at this like from a bird's eye view. If in the event you don't get the funds from the city and you have to shut the prison down, what happens? Let me ask you this. If you don't get the money from us, then what happens?
For this plumbing issue?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue to operate, and then when we go into deficit, we'll be back asking for more money.
Will the jail shut down?
If the plumbing didn't get fixed, the jail will shut down.
So without the money from us, get the plumbing fixed, will the jail shut down?
No, we're going to move forward. We're going to redirect the funding from other budget line items to cover this. So some of the other things will go undone. Like you say, you're paying $200,000 a week to support inmate escapes. Maybe if we were able to support and pay additional deputies more money or have additional deputies, we wouldn't have had that type of issue. We didn't have the resources needed to implement that. So it's just, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. So, once you get into the numbers and he's able to report back on what those cash balances look like and where we end up at, I'm sure you all will be more comfortable. But as of now, we're going to take money from another budget line item to cover this. So we are going to operate. The jail had 2 to 3 feet of water. It was going into the pods, affecting the residents at that moment. So we had to make a conscious decision, hey, you got to come in here and get this done. Not only that, to have the cover, not to have another escape, we got to get the razor wire up. Since the building's been there, it hasn't had it.
Well, I just want to make sure without this money, you're not telling us that the jail's going to...
No, we're going to move forward. We're going to redirect the funding from other sources. Like you said, you had to pay $200,000. Maybe we could have took that $200,000 and got better suited deputies to kind of do the work that we need done.
Well, that again?
So what you're saying is it's our fault they escaped?
No, you're saying it's our fault. You got to pay $200,000.
No, first off, and I'm not going to let you say it because I don't think Mr. King knows what you're saying. You keep saying if you would have given us $200,000 more and we'd have had higher paid deputies, you could have saved money on the front end. That's what you're saying repeatedly right now.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
exactly
you get
what you said. You're saying that we made a choice that since you didn't give you money for deputies, now we're paying $200,000 a week for Amana.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
You're not saying so.
No, I'm not saying that. You're saying that you're paying $200,000 because of the escape. And I'm telling you, if we would have had additional funding and resources, we could have had additional deputies on the pod to support it.
You just said it again. So what you're saying, let me be clear, because you just said it again, and the public is watching.
Yeah, the public is watching.
They're saying if we'd have given you more money, we wouldn't be paying $200,000 out of pocket for the escape.
I'm not saying that. I'm not.
We were able
we both having the same conversation?
We're talking about having more deputies on the pod. Do you have any other questions for us?
Yes.
You know that our allocation decreased.
We're ready to move forward.
I got cut out. I'm back in. I'm back in. First of all, the good thing about, I guess the good thing about this meeting, it was important that it happened. We have all of the people who understand money in the room. We have the Sheriff's Chief Financial Officer. We have the Legislative Auditor. We have our great Finance Department people. And we have the CAO. So for the public, what they would want and what I would want is that for all of these great money minds and counting minds to get together to talk about how we do a few things, right? How do we harden the prison to make sure that we don't leak inmates, right? How do we fix the plumbing to make sure that we don't leak water? And how do we manage the money to make sure that the public knows we're not leaking finances? So at the end of the day, with all of the theater here, the good thing is that all of the experts are in the room, and you guys are going to come back to us to figure that out. No one wants to see money taken from NORD. No one wants to see money taken from programs, but no one wants to see a correctional facility that's dysfunctional, that can't house its people, where the citizens are frightened because of the potential corrosion of the system for people to get away, and that we have a jail that we've wasted millions and millions of dollars on. And what do we know about preventative maintenance or corrective maintenance? That if you don't do it, it's going to cost you more in the future. So we can make a lot of these statements about taking money from where, but unless we start printing it, it's going to have to come from someplace to make sure that this facility is what we want it to be and that it operates professionally and that they're great stewards of managing the money, but also managing the population in jail. So I'm really, even with all this, I'm really kind of encouraged that everybody who has the power to kind of fix this is actually in the room. We're beyond blame now, guys, because we still got some folk missing. We still got some pipes leaking, and we still got the community guessing who's on first. Thank you.
Councilman Green, a question for the sheriff? Okay. My last follow-up. I appreciate the work of those who are here in the room who work with the sheriff's office. I know that it's a difficult challenge. I would like to have Sheriff Hudson more information, and I'd be glad to meet with you on the plan, because I've got to assume that with the situations as we have them now, we're not going to get a lot of additional employees at this time. What's going to be the plan to get within the capacity that you feel your employees, let's focus on the employees, are safe? We've read about that. The overpopulation, for whatever reason, is a danger to the employees there. We read in an article on the Times-Picayune about the fights that go on and the injuries that take place. I think that that's one of the impediments to doing the recruiting that needs to be done. I'd like to talk to you more. I'd be glad to talk to you offline, but I think it should be public. What is the state doing to help relative to the transfer of persons whose transfer will make that facility safer for them, or their imprisonment safer for them and also for the employees? That's an important concern. I look forward to talking to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councilman Moreno for a last question.
Final question. Can you just walk me through, where was the 3 feet of water that you all described? You said there was 3 feet of water from the plumbing issue?
So it was 2 to 3 feet.
Okay,
It was
where?
discovered on
That's a lot of 3 feet of water?
2 to 3 feet of water. It was a lot of water. It was.
Yeah.
It was a lot
Where was
of
it again?
water. It was on the 3rd floor.
3rd floor? Mm-hmm. And can you, I'm sorry, just explain to me, how big was this area? How?
So it's a jail pod. It's a jail pod.
so
It's
the
an
jail
interlock.
pod.
It's a pod.
The jail
so
pod
the water
had
was
3
leaking
feet
in
of
the
water.
interlock.
Was there anybody in the jail pod?
Yeah,
You
residents.
had inmates standing in 3 feet of water?
No, we shut it off before it got into the actual pod. But the water rose to that level, 2 to 3 feet. You would have you can't see it from where you at. You would have to physically be there to experience and see what we experience and see. And I'll refer to Ernestine, when you all came, the water was still at that level. I mean, it was leaking. I don't think it was at that level, but it was leaking.
It was leaking. Yeah, it was leaking.
It was pouring out. Like the water was pouring.
It's a 1-inch line, so it can put out a lot of water. But I mean,
Was it 3
I don't know
feet?
what the measurement of the depth of it was.
Okay. But was it 2 to 3 feet?
I wasn't in the pod. Would you say it was that high?